Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Chopper, the ship's doctor, was torn between awe and disbelief. Wood had healed all their injuries with just a wave of his hand. If Chopper had been the one treating them, it would have taken days to accomplish the same result. Noticing Chopper's downcast expression, Wood spoke to reassure him. This isn't really medical skill. It's simply a form of magic that heals external and internal injuries. But when it comes to illness or disease, I'm powerless. You, however, are a true doctor, and I have no doubt you'll one day become one of the greatest ship doctors on the seas. Hearing Wood's words, Chopper's gloom quickly turned to astonishment, and soon he was bouncing around with pure joy. Chopper's greatest wish as a doctor was to be recognized, and now to have someone like Wood. A figure the crew now regarded as a great power on the seas. Acknowledge him meant the world to the little reindeer. So, Wood, what exactly is this power of yours? Is it from some sort of healing devil fruit? Chopper asked curiously, unable to contain his wonder. For most devil fruit users, their powers were closely guarded secrets, and typically no one would directly ask about someone else's abilities. After realizing what he had asked, Chopper blushed, thinking he had been rude and expecting Wood to brush off the question. There's no need to hide it. This power, along with the ability to summon lightning and rain, comes from magic. Wood explained calmly. Though I know it's hard to believe, that's the truth. While Cobra and Nami looked skeptical, Usopp and Chopper, ever full of imagination, were quick to accept Wood's explanation and began eagerly asking if they could learn magic too. Well, unfortunately, you might be disappointed. As far as I know, I'm the only one who can wield this power in this world. Wood explained. Though I suppose it's not impossible that someone else could learn it one day. After returning from the world of Mushoku Tensei, Wood had experimented to see if anyone else could learn magic as he had. He had even set up a magic training camp aboard his ship, passing along the knowledge he had gained from that world. However, no matter how hard Robin, Ruth, or anyone else on his crew tried, they had never been able to sense the magical energy in the air, and so the training camp had quietly disbanded. At first, Robin and Ruth, like Nami and the others now, had doubted the existence of magic, suspecting Wood had eaten some unknown devil fruit. But their doubts had evaporated when they saw Wood leap into the ocean and begin swimming. It was well known that no devil fruit user could swim, as the sea was their greatest weakness. And yet, Wood swam with ease, dispelling any doubts they had about him being a devil fruit user. Fully healed, the first thing Luffy did upon waking was challenge Wood to another fight, but once again, he was swiftly knocked out. This time, Wood didn't bother healing him. Why are we sneaking off at night, Nami? Tomorrow's Vivi's big speech in front of the whole kingdom. Luffy asked groggily after being woken up by one of Nami's violent wake-up calls. Yeah, we haven't even properly said goodbye to Vivi. Usopp chimed in. Vivi is the princess of Alabasta. She can't come with us and become a pirate. Leaving quietly like this will make things easier for her. Nami explained, carrying large bags of loot, her movements a bit furtive. That's not it. Zoro interjected. She's trying to run away before anyone can collect the 10 billion Baileys in debt she owes to that Robin woman. Nami lost it all in a gamble, so now she's sneaking away to avoid paying. Zoro's blunt statement was cut short by a smack to the head from Nami, who angrily reminded him. If I remember correctly, I'm also someone's creditor, right? So if anyone comes after me for the money, guess who I'll be collecting from? Indeed, if it came down to fighting strength, Zoro could easily take Nami. But in a war of words, even 100 Zoros couldn't win against her. Reluctantly, Zoro agreed to the plan to leave Alabasta in the dead of night. In reality, even without the gambling debt, the crew had already planned to leave quietly to avoid making things harder for Vivi. However, the timeline had moved up because of Nami's massive debt. Despite the kingdom's fine food and the comfort of the palace accommodations compared to the cramped going merry, Nami had no choice but to push for an early departure. Had it been any ordinary debt, she might have considered weaseling out of it. But with someone as powerful as Wood, Someone even a warlord like Crocodile feared. There was no way Nami had the courage to default. You know, Wood's actually a pretty nice guy. He taught me a lot of advanced medical knowledge. Chopper mumbled nervously, trying to defend Wood's character. But as soon as Chopper opened his mouth, he felt the intense glares from the others and quickly fell silent. And so, under the cover of night, the Straw Hat Pirates slipped away from Alabasta. It wasn't until the next day that Vivi realized her friends had left without saying goodbye, and she was deeply moved by their consideration. Interestingly, what the Straw Hats didn't know was that Wood and his crew had also left Alabasta that very same night. Except they had left earlier in the evening, meaning the Straw Hats had effectively snuck away for no reason. The following day, as Vivi delivered her speech to her people amidst cheers and applause, she announced a new partnership with Wood's Weapons Company, outlining the kingdom's future plans. The news that Vivi had managed to sell the once worthless black oil on the island while securing various benefits for Alabasta sent the kingdom into a frenzy of excitement. Combined with her role in stopping Crocodile's plot, Vivi's popularity had soared even higher than her father's, earning her the adoration of the entire nation. Looks like Princess Vivi has really won over the hearts of her people. She's quite the impressive young woman, isn't she? Standing in the shadows at the edge of the cheering crowd were two figures, both wearing the signature white cloaks of the Navy. If Wood had been present, he would have immediately recognized both of them. The first, a tall, black-haired woman with a beauty mark at the corner of her lips, was none other than Rear Admiral Jian, also known as Mo Malzagi. The second figure, a woman with stunning aqua-blue hair, was a Navy captain, and someone Wood knew all too well. His adoptive younger sister, Ain. Over the past decade, the once timid girl had grown into a confident and capable officer, a beauty whose long legs and figure rivaled those of the most renowned women in the world. Ain had not only graduated from the Navy Academy with top honors but had also eaten the Paramsha-type return fruit, making her far stronger than she had ever been. Chapter 321, Another Special Mission. After Ain graduated from the Navy Academy, Jian, having learned that Ain was Wood's sister and understanding why she had joined the Navy, immediately transferred her to serve as her assistant. Ain's rapid rise through the ranks was due in part to her natural abilities, but Jian's guidance also played a significant role. Over the years, through careful observation, Jian had come to trust Ain completely. Wanting to prevent further misunderstandings between Ain and her brother, Jian revealed some of the truth about Wood's situation to her. As a result, Ain had become one of the few people aware of Wood's true mission. Upon learning the truth, her admiration for her brother, who had endured so much for their cause, only deepened. According to the information we gathered this morning, it seems that Wood left Alabasta last night. We must have just missed him. Jian said. It wasn't only Ain who had hoped to see Wood after all these years. Jian, too, was curious about how Wood was faring. Their mission to Alabasta wasn't only to calm the royal family, they also had questions for Wood and a special assignment from headquarters to deliver to him. When Smoker and Tashigi handed Crocodile over to Jian, Crocodile, for reasons unknown, revealed that Alabasta had an ancient weapon known as Pluton. Due to the significance of the ancient weapons, the Navy headquarters decided to handle Crocodile's case differently. Instead of sending him directly to Impel Down, they offered him a reduced sentence in exchange for information about Pluton. Though Jian and Dane expected Crocodile to resist interrogation, they were surprised when he willingly provided the information about Pluton without the need for coercion. Following his lead, Jian and Dane snuck into Alabasta's royal tomb and found traces of a poneglyph. Unfortunately, the part of the wall containing the poneglyph's information had been deliberately destroyed. Having gained vital information about Pluton, the Navy couldn't simply let the matter rest. They interrogated Crocodile further and discovered that aside from him, two others had been present at the time. Wood and Straw Hat Luffy. If anyone had copied the poneglyph's information and then destroyed the original, it had to be one of them. Crocodile's intention was clear: if he was going down, he wanted to drag Wood and Luffy with him. However, what Crocodile didn't know was that Wood was still working as a Navy undercover agent. Since the ones investigating were Jian and Dane, who fully trusted Wood, they immediately dismissed him as a suspect, focusing their attention on Luffy instead. Luffy, having defeated Crocodile and possibly possessing information about Pluton, was deemed a significant threat by the Navy. His bounty was raised to 120 million Baileys, and orders were given to capture him alive. Due to the importance of Pluton, Jian's other missions were put on hold as she was tasked with pursuing the Straw Hat Pirates. As for the mission Jian had for Wood, it was one she had initially been assigned herself. But since she had to chase the Straw Hats, she needed Wood to take over. She had hoped to explain the mission to Wood in person, but since he had already left Alabasta, she had no choice but to contact him via Den Den Mushi. Buru. Meanwhile, on Wood's ship, as they sailed away from Alabasta with some crude oil they planned to refine, his Den Den Mushi suddenly rang. He pulled it out, and upon seeing who it was, Robin's face immediately darkened. She knew that particular Den Mushi connected Wood with the Navy. And when the female voice came through the speaker, Robin's displeasure deepened. It was someone she particularly despised. Vice Admiral Wood, regarding the situation in Alabasta, Fleet Admiral Sengoku has praised your handling of it. However, he also said that in the future, when dealing with sensitive intelligence, you should report to headquarters first to avoid losing the Navy's trust in places like Alabasta. That's right. After over a decade of diligent undercover work, combined with the military supplies he occasionally provided to the Navy, Wood had risen to the rank of Vice Admiral. If things had gone his way, he would have requested a quiet post in a remote branch and retired peacefully. Unfortunately, the better his standing on the seas, the more valuable he became to the Navy. Hearing Giant's praise, Wood was taken aback. He hadn't really done anything in Alabasta, had he? Crocodile had been defeated by the Straw Hat Pirates, the war was stopped by Princess Vivi, and Smoker's Marines cleaned up the aftermath. As for Wood, he had just been there to observe and check in. Was destroying the Poneglyph really considered a great accomplishment? Wasn't it you who defeated Warlord Crocodile? Giant continued. Smoker reported that it was Straw Hat Luffy, but no one at headquarters believes that a pirate with a mere 30 million Bailey's bounty could do such a thing. Sengoku is convinced that you received intelligence about Crocodile's plot to seize Alabasta, and that's why you went to stop him. But because of your undercover status, your success had to be credited to the Navy, and Smoker is taking the credit. After all, he is one of your few old acquaintances, so I assume you don't mind. Hearing this, Wood finally understood why Sengoku had praised him. From the Navy's perspective, Wood was the one who had stopped Crocodile's plot and defeated him. Wood wanted to explain, but whether Giant believed him or not, headquarters certainly wouldn't. After all, there was a world of difference between the Navy saved Alabasta and pirates saved Alabasta. Even if the Straw Hats had done everything, the Navy would never admit it publicly. Giant, there's more to this than just Alabasta, right? You wouldn't contact me just to talk about that. Wood said, already guessing there was a more pressing reason for her call. After the Alabasta incident, headquarters suspects the Straw Hat Pirates have obtained information about the ancient weapon Pluton. They've tasked me with pursuing them. As for the mission I was supposed to complete, I'm assigning it to you now. Sengoku also believes you're better suited for it. Giant then detailed the mission, as well as the individuals Wood would be working with. Upon hearing the specifics, Wood's face twisted in frustration. That old man Sengoku has assigned me another dangerous and difficult mission. I've been a Vice Admiral all this time, yet almost no one knows, I've never received a salary, and headquarters still owes me a ton of supplies. Now they're sending me on another life-threatening task. Doesn't that old man feel even a little guilty? The mission Giant outlined wasn't life-threatening, but it was far from easy. Big Mom, one of the 4 emperors of the sea, was hosting a tea party soon. Wood's mission was to attend the tea party, make contact with Stussy, the queen of the Pleasure District, and work to inflame tensions between the Big Mom pirates and the Beasts pirates. Though both were 4 emperors, Big Mom and Kaido had never been on the best of terms. Recently, skirmishes over territory had further strained relations between the 2 pirate crews. Wood's task was to assist Stussy in convincing Big Mom to take action against Kaido's crew. Unknown to many, Stussy wasn't just a ruler of the underworld, she was also an undercover agent for the world government, a member of the most powerful intelligence agency, Cypher Pol Zero agent. The Navy had not disclosed Wood's undercover status to Stussy, only informing her that they were cooperating with him. Sengoku had no intention of revealing Wood as the Navy's secret asset. Because of Wood's unique position, operating in the gray areas between the law, the Navy, and the underworld, it made sense for him to work with someone like Stussy. Because of the importance of Pluton, I have to focus on pursuing the Straw Hat Pirates. Giant explained. If you don't want this mission, I can have Ain contact Stussy instead. But for Ain's safety, I would only ask her to exchange information and not attend Big Mom's tea party. Besides Giant herself, Ain was the most capable person she had with her. If it was only about passing on intelligence, Giant was confident Ain could handle it. Are you out of your mind? Wood exclaimed. Big Mom's tea parties are held in her stronghold, Whole Cake Island. The attendees are usually the rulers of the underworld, and Big Mom's sweet commanders aren't to be trifled with. Sending Ain, a Navy captain, into that kind of danger is a death sentence. The Navy has plenty of powerful officers, send one of them instead. As Giant had said, exchanging information without showing herself to Big Mom or provoking her into action against Kaido wouldn't be too dangerous. But Wood hadn't seen Ain in years, and to him, she was still the shy, timid little sister he remembered. Whole Cake Island was the heart of Big Mom's empire. Any Navy officer caught there wouldn't survive. As Ain's brother, Wood didn't want her anywhere near such danger. She needs to grow, Wood. Jian replied. Ain's overall strength has already surpassed that of most Navy captains. And with her devil fruit ability, she's perfectly suited for infiltration missions. Other than you, I can't think of anyone more qualified. Ain had eaten the return fruit, a Paramsha-type devil fruit that allowed her to reverse time for objects and people she touched. It wasn't a literal reversal in the sense of turning back time on the world, but more of a temporal regression. Anything Ain touched, whether living or not, would revert to its state 12 years prior. Ain's current limit was a 12-year regression, but this could improve with further mastery of her power. Chapter 322, The Terrifying Potential of the Modo Modo no Mi. Even though the Modo Modo no Mi, return fruit, has some limitations, its power is still quite formidable. After all, the ability to reverse aging is essentially a weaker version of immortality. Moreover, this ability falls under the category of rule-based powers. When someone is regressed, their state returns to what it was 12 years ago. For example, if this ability were used on Golden Lion Shiki, it could potentially reverse his condition to the time before he lost his legs. Even without its supplementary effects, the Modo Modo no Mi's power alone is incredibly destructive. As mentioned earlier, the limit of the Modo Modo no Mi's ability is not just 12 years, but it's restricted by Ain's current level of mastery. If Ain were to develop this regression ability to reverse more than 50 years, anyone under the age of 50 who doesn't use Haki for defense would likely die with just a single touch from her. This would be an instant kill. There's no chance for regeneration or recovery. If a target doesn't exist beyond the 50-year threshold, their existence is essentially nullified. This is a rule-based ability, similar to Sugar's Hobby Fruit and Yuta's Yuta no Mi, Sing Fruit. Against such powers, the only way to escape is to defeat the user directly, making them almost impossible to counter otherwise. For this reason, Wood considers Ain's return fruit one of the strongest devil fruits in the world. Since Ain has the power to reverse aging, Wood asked Giant to keep the fact that Ain consumed a devil fruit a secret. If the world knew about this, there would be no shortage of people coveting Ain's power. Damn it. I'll take this mission. I can only guarantee that I'll obtain the intel from Stussy, but I can't promise I'll be able to sow discord between Big Mom and the Beast's pirates. Wood couldn't rest easy sending Ain to such a dangerous place as Toto Land, so despite his reluctance, he had no choice but to accept the mission. The limitations of the Navy headquarters are still too great. Even though Giant had been taking good care of Ain, there's always a chance that Ain's devil fruit powers might be exposed in future battles. He also wondered when Z would leave the Navy. If the timeline follows the original, it should be around the time Whitebeard dies, and Edward Weevil, the so-called son of Whitebeard, is appointed as a warlord of the sea. By then, he could ask Z to take Ain under his wing as his second-in-command in the Neo-Navy. Surely that's better than staying as a mere captain in the Navy headquarters? Moreover, Wood trusted Z's character and didn't think he would covet Ain's devil fruit powers. After hanging up the Den Mushi, Wood sighed helplessly. Standing beside him, Robin asked thoughtfully. Are we heading back to Dark Abyss Island or to Toto Land? Big Mom's tea party isn't something just anyone can attend, but Wood had been invited several times. As the world's largest arms dealer, Wood's weaponry was sold all over the world, making him one of the emperors of the underworld. To maintain relationships with the underworld's leaders, Big Mom would always send out invitations to her tea parties. Normally, even the emperors of the underworld wouldn't dare to disrespect Big Mom, one of the 4 emperors. But Wood was different. His strength and influence, while slightly weaker than the 4 emperors, were not far off. He didn't need to bow to Big Mom like the others. Currently, Big Mom and the Beast's pirates were locked in a fierce struggle for territory, and both sides were trying to pull Wood, who remained neutral, to their side. So even though Wood often declined her invitations, Big Mom still sent an invitation to his company every year. Robin, how about you return to Dark Abyss Island first? I just accepted a rather tricky mission. While it might not necessarily be dangerous in Toto Land, if a fight does break out, I can help. I've already seen the Sweet Commanders, and aside from Kitakuri, the others are nothing special. In the Big Mom pirates, only Big Mom herself poses a real threat to me. Besides, the invitation is with me. Without it, Captain, you wouldn't even be able to enter Toto Land. Clearly unhappy with Wood's plan to leave her behind, Robin refused to let him go alone. Fine. But once we reach Big Mom's territory, you'll have to follow my arrangements. If things go smoothly, we might not even need to fight. And remember, the people at the tea party are on a completely different level than Crocodile. Make sure you don't slip up in front of them. Seeing that he couldn't leave Robin behind, Wood sighed and eventually agreed to let her accompany him to Toto Land. Wood trusted Robin's strength and intelligence. If it had been Russ instead, he would have insisted on sending him back. Over the past decade, under Wood's intense training, Russ and the other original crew members had improved significantly, their strength soaring. Several of them, including Russ, had even found suitable devil fruits, becoming devil fruit users. Russ's devil fruit was the dragon fruit model, Mos Ceres, an ancient zone. Mos Ceres was the ruler of the oceans during the Mesozoic era, even preying on powerful dinosaurs. Just like the fish fruit model, Azure Dragon devil fruit users like Russ can breathe underwater but still can't swim. However, considering Kaido's fish fruit model, Azure Dragon devil fruit, it suggests that some devil fruit users might still be able to function in water. Otherwise, Kaido wouldn't be known as the strongest creature on land, sea, and air. Since sea is part of the title, it implies that Kaido is not fully restrained by seawater or that the water's effect on him is weaker than for other devil fruit users. Similarly, Russ, as a Mos Ceres user, can breathe and move underwater, though his powers are still restricted by the sea. On land, Russ's Mos Ceres form can reach a length of over 20 meters, but in the ocean, it can only reach about 10 meters. Even so, it's still incredibly powerful. Few devil fruit users can avoid the curse of becoming a weak swimmer. As a sea creature, the Mos Ceres would be strongest in the ocean, but now it's actually weaker there than on land. Even so, Russ is still one of the few devil fruit users who doesn't fear water. And with the tough, durable skin of an ancient zone, Russ's strength is further enhanced. In terms of combatability, Wood thinks that when Russ gets serious, he should be a little stronger than Robin. But despite Russ's immense strength, his intellect hasn't improved as much. So if Wood had to pick a second-in-command, he would choose Robin without hesitation. After all, Robin can analyze situations, while Russ only has muscle. Besides, wouldn't it be better to have a beautiful secretary by his side than some big guy? The four emperors have held sway over the seas for years, each with their own territory. The Tato Land Sea, located in the New World, is under the control of Big Mom's pirate crew. Big Mom rules this sea and has established the Tato Land Kingdom, also known as the Land of Dreams. Big Mom's dream is to create a utopia where various races coexist peacefully in Tato Land. The Tato Land Kingdom is centered around Whole Cake Island, with 34 surrounding islands governed by 34 ministers, while Big Mom is the undisputed queen of the kingdom. Totally Land aims to be a home for all races and tribes to live in harmony, but after years of effort, there are still 3 races missing from Tato Land. These races are the Giants, the Lunarians, represented by Wildfire King, and one other unknown race. Big Mom has a long-standing grudge with the Giants, which most fans are well aware of. As for the other 2 races, they are either very rare or have left no trace. Due to her childhood experiences, Big Mom is most fond of the Giants, but unfortunately, they see her as an enemy for destroying Elbaf. Since she couldn't win the Giants' approval and fulfill her dream, Big Mom turned to Joker from the underworld and Caesar, who was abandoned by the Navy's scientific team, in hopes of creating her own Giants. The largest island in Tato Land, Whole Cake Island, is the center of the kingdom, where Big Mom hosts her tea parties. Although there's still some time before the tea party starts, some emperors of the underworld and influential figures from the New World have already begun arriving. After all, they are dealing with Big Mom, one of the 4 emperors, and she takes her tea parties very seriously. Even the underworld emperors have no right to act superior in front of her. The attendees of this tea party are all prominent figures, and the most notable among them are the 6 emperors of the underworld, the Lone Shark King, Fu Shen Lufield, a dark financial giant of the underworld, the Queen of the Pleasure District, Stussy, who controls all the red light districts of the underworld, the Great Undertaker, responsible for handling the affairs of those who die in the pirate world, the King of the News, Morgans, who monopolizes the news industry across the seas. The newsbirds delivering papers all over the world are his employees. The King of Storage, Concealer Gibberson, essentially the underworld's version of a modern-day banking system. The Shipping King, Deep Ocean Current Umit, who controls a large portion of the sea's shipping services and is one of Wood's closest partners. Aside from these 6 emperors, another familiar face at the tea party is Don Quixote da Flamengo, now one of the warlords of the sea. Da Flamengo controls the underworld slave trade and acts as a broker, placing him above the 6 emperors in the underworld hierarchy. He is symbolized as the Joker in a deck of cards. However, Da Flamengo doesn't particularly like the Joker nickname. In the past, he enjoyed his role as the wild card in the underworld. But with Wood's meteoric rise in the underworld, being rich, powerful, and even stronger than Da Flamengo, Wood had usurped the wild card position. Now, people in the underworld say that Da Flamengo is merely the little Joker, while Wood, the Navy trader who monopolizes the world's arms trade, is the big Joker. The Don Quixote family is structured around playing cards, with the highest ranking and strongest figure symbolized by the Joker. The fact that the big Joker was now referring to someone outside the family was unbearable for Doflamingo. Over the years, Doflamingo had repeatedly tried to eliminate Wood, but times had changed. There was a slim chance of doing so in the past, but now it was utterly impossible. Today, Wood is in partnership with Guild Tesoro, the Golden Emperor, and has the backing of the Celestial Dragons. His influence and network have spread across the entire ocean. Crucially, Wood's personal strength is unmatched, and Doflamingo has suffered defeat after defeat at his hands, to the point where he now has a psychological shadow when it comes to Wood. If you ask Doflamingo what his biggest regrets are, the first would be giving up his Celestial Dragon status with his foolish father, and the second would be angering Wood over a decade ago. With everyone having arrived and Big Mom eagerly anticipating the prepared feast, she decided to start the tea party early. None of her children or the invited guests found this surprising, as it wasn't the first time. Big Mom's greatest passion is eating, and with her seemingly bottomless appetite, asking her to wait before indulging in a feast is practically impossible. Moreover, since Big Mom is the host, she can start the tea party whenever she pleases, and no one would dare object. However, this time, someone did voice an objection to starting early. To the surprise of Doflamingo and the other emperors of the underworld, the person who spoke up was none other than Stussy, the queen of the Pleasure District. People who frequent the underworld know that Stussy is not to be underestimated. She is extremely intelligent and cunning, which is how she became the only female emperor in the underworld. Chapter 323, Big Mom's plan to recruit Wood through marriage. Stussy, known for her caution and wit, surprised Doflamingo and the other underworld kings by opposing Big Mom at this moment. Big Mom, while not in the grip of one of her hunger pangs, still had a temper. Even for a friend like Stussy, food took precedence over everything, even her children. Linlin, I know interrupting your meal makes you angry. But not all the guests have arrived yet, and the tea party hasn't officially started. Wouldn't it be rude to begin before the others get here? Stussy remarked calmly. Hearing Stussy's words, Big Mom turned to her eldest son, Charlotte Prospero, with a puzzled look. As one of the suite commanders and the Minister of Candy, Prospero checked the guest list and compared it with the guests already present. After a moment, Prospero looked up and said, Mama, the remaining guests are just minor players. Even if we start early, they wouldn't dare complain. Stussy laughed lightly and said, Oh? So now, even Wood, the Navy trader who controls the world's arms trade, is considered a minor player in the eyes of the Candy Minister? Everyone present froze for a moment. Was Wood really a minor player? If so, then aside from Big Mom, everyone else here must be insignificant as well. Although Big Mom invited Wood to her tea parties every year, the Underworld Arms King had never attended, seemingly unconcerned about offending one of the four emperors. Linlin, I know you've been trying to recruit Wood and his weapons company. So, I made sure to reach out to him for you this time. Thanks to my persuasion, he's agreed to attend. He should be on his way now, and I believe he'll arrive before the tea party officially begins. Stussy continued. The crowd's expressions varied, but most were surprised. Doflamingo and the other underworld kings were especially curious. When had Wood started associating with Stussy? As for Big Mom, she was thrilled. Without her usual hunger-driven frenzy, her mind was sharp, and she understood that securing an alliance with Wood was far more important than an early snack. Her displeasure with Stussy vanished, and she even ordered extra servings of her favorite desserts to be prepared for her as a thank you. For Big Mom, sharing desserts was a significant gesture of appreciation. Seeing Big Mom's gratitude, Stussy breathed a sigh of relief. When she had first learned that Wood, the infamous Navy trader, would be helping her with this mission, she was shocked. But that shock quickly turned into excitement. Though she didn't know what the Navy had done to get Wood to cooperate, she knew his strength and influence would greatly improve the chances of success. And now, her strategic delay not only bought Wood more time to arrive but also earned her Big Mom's favor. Big Mom probably believed Wood was attending only because of Stussy's efforts. While the underworld leaders didn't mind the delayed tea party, they were all puzzled as to why Wood had suddenly decided to attend Big Mom's event. Wood had always stayed neutral, refusing both Big Mom and Kaido's invitations. His neutrality was what kept him safe, despite declining their offers. But now, Wood, the powerful Navy trader, was coming to Big Mom's tea party. Could this mean he favored her over Kaido? Or, as Stussy implied, was Wood only attending because of her? Meanwhile, within Big Mom's castle, she was eating giant cakes while flipping through a photo album. The album wasn't a typical family album but rather a directory containing photos, ages, races, and details of all of her children. Among the four emperors, Big Mom's crew, like Whitebeard's, resembled a massive family more than a traditional pirate crew. However, unlike Whitebeard, who cherished his sons, Big Mom treated her children more like tools. Big Mom had 43 husbands, 39 daughters, and 46 sons. With so many children, she couldn't remember all of their names. While she never forgot her more powerful children, like the sweet commanders, the less talented ones rarely crossed her mind. For Big Mom, her children were merely pawns to secure alliances with other races and powerful figures. At this moment, she was flipping through the album, searching for a suitable candidate to marry off to Wood. Yes, Big Mom's preferred method of forming alliances was through marriage, turning enemies or potential allies into family. Wood, the notorious Navy traitor, was in his middle age but had never married. Big Mom saw this tea party as the perfect chance to change that. What do you think? If you were Wood, which of my daughters would you prefer? Big Mom asked her sons as she continued to eat cake. Prospero thought for a moment and replied, Mama, out of your 39 daughters, there are still quite a few who haven't married yet. But considering Wood's age, Mond, second daughter, Amand, third daughter, and Custard wouldn't be appropriate. Based on Wood's human background and likely preferences, I think Smoothie, 14th daughter, Sweet Commander and Minister of Juice, Galette, 18th daughter, Minister of Butter, Charlotte Pudding, 35th daughter, and Flamp, 36th daughter, Minister of Honey, would be the best choices. As someone who managed many of Toto Land's affairs, Prospero offered a reasonable suggestion. After hearing his recommendation, Big Mom turned to her other sons, Kitakuri and Cracker, and asked, What do you two think? Which sister do you think would be best for Wood? Kitakuri, Big Mom's second son, and Cracker, her 10th, were part of the Sweet Commanders, the strongest fighters in the Big Mom pirates aside from Big Mom herself. Cracker, not particularly interested in the idea of marriage alliances, simply agreed with Prospero's recommendation. For me, all of my sisters are outstanding, so I can't choose between them. Kitakuri answered. No one thought Kitakuri was being evasive. He truly adored all his siblings equally. Among Big Mom's children, while Big Mom herself was the most feared, Kitakuri was the most beloved and admired. Kitakuri, the highest-ranking Sweet Commander with a bounty of over 1 billion Baileys, was considered the pride of the Charlotte family. Renowned for his undefeated record, he was constantly voted as the most popular brother within the family and even had his own fan club. He was famously known as the man whose back had never touched the ground in a fight. Kitakuri worked hard to maintain his perfect image because it was what his siblings wanted. His greatest desire was to protect every member of the Charlotte family. Then we'll choose from Smoothie, Galette, Charlotte Pudding, and Flamp. Big Mom decided. Prospero, which one do you think would be best for Wood? Mama, based on age, I think Charlotte Pudding and Flamp would be better choices. Most men prefer younger women. However, considering Wood's strength, he might prefer someone more powerful, in which case Smoothie and Galette would be better suited. Wood has his own territory and influence on the seas. Even if he marries into the Charlotte family, he likely wouldn't stay with the Big Mom pirates. Since Smoothie is one of our top fighters and a high-ranking officer, her leaving with Wood would impact our crew's strength. So I believe Galette, Charlotte Pudding, and Flamp would be the most suitable options. Prospero's suggestion wasn't just based on Smoothie's role as a key member of the crew. He was also worried that if Smoothie married Wood, she might end up leaving the crew for him, just as Lola had defied Big Mom's orders in the past. Big Mom's lack of care for her children had led many of them to fear her more than they loved her. If any of them found someone who valued them more than Big Mom, betrayal wasn't entirely impossible. Of course, Prospero couldn't voice these concerns, as doing so would anger both Big Mom and Kitakuri. Big Mom hated traitors, and Kitakuri wouldn't tolerate anyone doubting his siblings' loyalty. Alright then, let's have Galette, Charlotte Pudding, and Flamp attend the tea party. Big Mom decided. Meanwhile, unaware that Big Mom was already considering him as a future son-in-law, Wood and Robin were sailing toward the New World. Since the distance from Alabasta to Toto Land was quite far, Wood had called upon Sea Kings to pull their boat. They traveled through the Navy's official channels, cutting down the journey time significantly. Wood was likely the only pirate who could sail through Navy-controlled waters without any trouble. As Wood's boat, flying the flag of his weapons company, passed Manaford, the Marines watched in frustration but could do nothing. Wood's partnership with Guild Tesoro made him a major benefactor to the Celestial Dragons. Even Fleet Admiral Akanyu, seething with rage, could only watch helplessly as Wood sailed past. After entering the New World, Wood and Robin were greeted by Baron Tamago and Paycoms from the Big Mom pirates. Welcome to Toto Land, the kingdom ruled by the Big Mom pirates. Mama has been expecting you, Wood, and sent us to welcome you as her guests and guides. Baron Tamago, a member of the Long-Leg tribe, said with a polite bow. Chapter 324, Stussy's plan to win over Wood. Looks like the Big Mom pirates really do have some serious power. Just being guides, They sent Baron Tamago with a bounty of 429 million Baileys and Peckhams with a bounty of 330 million Baileys. Indeed, despite their comical appearance, Baron Tamago and Peckhams were formidable members of the Big Mom pirates, outranking even some of Big Mom's children. Their bounty alone was enough to easily surpass most pirates in the New World. No one else could handle this job, Wood. After all, this is your first visit to Toto Land, and Mama has a lot of respect for you. Baron Tamago added, his voice smooth and polite. On the seas, the four most powerful pirate crews, known as the Four Emperors, reigned supreme. Among them, the strongest was considered to be the white-beard pirates, while the red-haired pirates were seen as the weakest. Shanks, being younger and less experienced compared to the other three emperors, seemed to fall short. However, despite this, the red-haired pirates managed to solidify their place among the emperors, thanks in no small part to Wood's support through his weapons company. Rumor had it that Shanks had once done a great favor for Wood, the former Navy officer turned arms dealer. Because of this, whenever the red-haired pirates faced a difficult situation, Wood's company would come to their aid. With Wood's support, Shanks had maintained his position as one of the four emperors. Naturally, other emperors like Big Mom and Kaido also sought to win Wood's favor, knowing that his backing could tip the balance of power in the seas. Totally, Toto Land was made up of 34 islands, most of which were named after various sweets. As Wood and Robin entered the area, they were immediately surrounded by the sweet aromas that filled the air. For food lovers, and especially those with a sweet tooth, Toto Land was nothing short of paradise. Once they arrived at Whole Cake Island, the heart of Toto Land, they were not immediately introduced to Big Mom. Instead, Baron Tamago and Peckhams escorted them to a prepared residence, informed them of the tea party's schedule, and then left. To pass the time, Baron Tamago suggested that Wood and Robin explore the different islands within Toto Land. Before leaving, the two Big Mom pirates left Wood with a suitcase, a gesture of Big Mom's appreciation. After they left, Wood, without hesitation, opened the suitcase to find it filled with large stacks of Baileys. If I'd known Big Mom's tea party would come with such perks, I'd have attended every year. Wood joked. The suitcase contained a substantial amount of cash. Roughly around 200 million Baileys. It wasn't a huge amount by Big Mom's standards or for Wood's weapons company, but it was certainly a generous sum. For many pirate crews, that amount would be more than their entire fortune. For comparison, the Straw Hat Pirates, who had recently left Alabasta, had only two members with bounties, Luffy, with a bounty of 120 million Baileys, and Zoro, with a bounty of 60 million Baileys. Together, their combined bounty was 180 million Baileys. In other words, Big Mom's pocket money was worth more than both Luffy and Zoro combined. Toto Land really is something else. The rumors about this place gathering almost every race in the world seem to be true. Wood remarked as he and Robin strolled down the main street of Whole Cake Island, watching a variety of species pass by. It wasn't unusual to see minks or fishmen, but seeing long arms, long necks, and other rare species was something new, even for someone as well-traveled as Wood. On the Dark Abyss Island, where Wood and his crew lived, they mostly encountered fishmen, merfolk, and regular humans. Bringing two such different groups together on a single island was no small feat. But Toto Land, created by Big Mom, was a different story. Here, Wood had already seen more than 10 different races, all living in harmony, even marrying and raising families together. Say what you want about Big Mom, but she had truly accomplished something remarkable, even if she had done it through force. Half of the stores here sell food, especially sweets. Wood noted. Robin, why don't we split up? You're probably more interested in bookstores anyway, and I need to gather some intel for our mission. Robin hesitated for a moment but ultimately agreed. Earlier, she had spotted a bookstore she wanted to explore but hadn't entered because of Wood. We'll meet back at this square inches the evening. Here's your pocket money, she said. Despite having already arrived on Whole Cake Island, it was clear that Robin wouldn't allow Wood to wander off alone so easily. After agreeing to the plan, Robin handed Wood a small stack of Baileys for his expenses. You've got to be kidding me. Didn't Big Mom just give us at least 200 million Baileys in that suitcase? Even if we don't split it evenly, couldn't you give me a few million? Giving me only 100,000 Baileys is just ridiculous. Wood exclaimed. Robin wasn't Nami, and money didn't interest her as much. However, she was strict with Wood's spending for one simple reason: whenever he had money, he tended to waste it. Ever since she had learned about Wood's escapades with Ruth on Guild Tesoro's ship, visiting nightclubs and indulging in luxuries, Robin had been keeping a close watch on Wood's pocket money. Everyone knew that going to nightclubs was expensive, and outside of Tesoro's ship, where Wood could enjoy some privileges, most places wouldn't be as generous. Robin had calculated that 100,000 Baileys would be enough for Wood to have a good time, but not enough to get into too much trouble. After signing all those deals in Alabasta, we still need to help them with land development and city construction, both of which will be major expenses. As the head of finances for Wood's Weapons Company, I have to make sure every Bailey counts. Robin explained. Wood couldn't argue with that. But 100,000 Baileys is way too little. I need more for gathering intel, buying information. That stuff costs money too. He protested. Seeing Wood's seriousness and hearing his valid points, Robin eventually relented, giving him an additional 400,000 Baileys before turning to leave. 50,000 Baileys should be enough. If you need more for important intel, come find me at the bookstore. We can buy whatever information will help us. Robin called out as she left. With 500,000 Baileys in hand, Wood knew this was the limit of what Robin would give him. It wasn't much, especially if he intended to spend it on high-end recreational activities. Robin knew Wood's tastes well. He wouldn't settle for anything ordinary or unimpressive, and with only 500,000 Baileys, he wouldn't be able to afford anything too extravagant. As Wood wandered through the narrow streets, he spotted a few places that seemed promising for gathering intel. But after checking the money in his pocket, he shook his head and walked away. He had finally managed to get rid of Robin for a while, but she had seen through his plans and limited his spending. This was Toto Land, after all. While most of the shops sold food, there were plenty of establishments catering to other, more adult interests. With the various races living here, the entertainment options were just as diverse. Wood had been curious to try out the unique offerings in Toto Land. Not that he would ever admit that out loud. His main goal was gathering intel, of course. But a little cultural exchange wouldn't hurt, right? Yet, with only 500,000 Baileys, he couldn't afford anything too special. Even the most ordinary services would likely be out of his reach. I can only offer 500,000 Baileys, and that's my final price. But you'll have to answer some of my questions too. Wood said, offering the money to a mink woman with rabbit ears. The mink, puffing on a cigarette, gave Wood a look of disdain and walked away. She had approached him thinking he was a wealthy customer, only to discover that he was, in fact, broke. 500,000 Baileys? In Toto Land, that wouldn't get you far. Residents here had to pay a tax to Big Mom, either in the form of money or their lifespan. And Wood's paltry offer wouldn't even cover the monthly fee. After several failed attempts to gather information, Wood realized that prices in Toto Land were far higher than elsewhere. The 500,000 Baileys in his pocket were worth even less than he had imagined. Just as he was about to return to Robin and ask for more money, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. Who would have thought? The infamous Wood, the Navy trader who's conquered the world's arms trade, partnered with Gil Tesoro, and is rumored to be the richest man on the seas, can't even afford a proper conversation with a girl. The figure teased. Appearing before Wood was a blonde woman in a pink dress and white shawl, with blue high heels, a handbag, and a stylish hat adorned with flowers. Her elegant demeanor and striking beauty made her seem like a lady from high society. But this woman was no ordinary socialite. She was Stussy, the queen of the pleasure district and one of the rulers of the underworld. In the shadowy world of the underworld, where corruption and darkness thrived, Stussy's ability to rise as a female leader spoke volumes about her cunning and strength. I didn't expect to see one of the emperors of the underworld, the queen of the pleasure district, working for the world government. Wood remarked, trying to hide his embarrassment. Well, I'm just as surprised as you. I wonder what kind of deal the Navy made to convince you to help them. Have you ever thought about joining the world government? After all, the Navy is just one part of it. Whatever they offered you, the government can offer more. And if it's women you're interested in, I'm in that business, remember? I can give you as many as you want, for free. Stussy purred, leaning closer to Wood. As she moved closer, her body pressed against his, and Wood could feel her soft curves against his chest. You must have misunderstood something. Wood said, gently pushing her away. I visit these places purely for the intel, not for anything else. Besides, if I wanted to join the world government, I wouldn't need your recommendation. Now, let's cut to the chase. Tell me about the secret intel you've gathered for the Navy, and explain the mission plan. Wood remained composed, though internally he found Stussy's advances both suspicious and unappealing. Despite her youthful appearance, rumors suggested that Stussy was much older than she looked. Although the exact truth was uncertain, the stories gained credibility from the fact that anyone who dared mention her age in her presence often met a swift and violent end. Chapter 325, Big Mom's Tea Party. Upon hearing Wood's refusal, Stussy felt a bit disappointed but wasn't too surprised. If Wood were so easy to recruit, Big Mom and Kaido wouldn't be fighting over him. The world government had long wanted to bring Wood into their fold. Or more specifically, gain control over his weapons company. Wood's weapons company produced vast quantities of arms every year. Not only could this increase the military power of the world government, but the endless stream of orders would also bring in a fortune. The world government had already sent multiple delegations to recruit him, but all had failed without exception. When it came to status, wealth, or sheer power, Wood had already reached the top of the world, and the world government simply couldn't offer anything that would interest him. Stussy had noticed by chance that Wood had a bit of a weakness for women, so she decided to play to her strengths and make a move. Failing wasn't a problem, but if she had succeeded, it would have been a huge victory for her. The current leader of Cypherpol Zero Agent was nearing retirement, and the position of chief had yet to be filled. If she could bring Wood to the world government's side, she would undoubtedly secure that role. Big Mom takes your participation in her tea party very seriously. In fact, from what I've heard, she's planning to make you a part of the Charlotte family. I've also leaked the news of your attendance at the tea party through the underground network. By now, Kaido and the Beast's pirates should know about it too. Upon hearing this, Wood's expression darkened. He turned to Stussy with an icy glare and grabbed her by the throat, lifting her off the ground. Who told you to make that move? I only agreed to help the Navy complete this mission, but that doesn't mean you can go behind my back and manipulate me. Wood's task was to provoke conflict between the Big Mom pirates and the Beast's pirates, but that didn't mean he lacked other ways to accomplish this. Stussy's decision to spread the news in the underground world had effectively pushed Wood from his neutral position straight into Big Mom's camp. Even if I didn't make the move, the news of your attendance would have leaked anyway. Someone else already informed Kaido before I did. Choked by Wood's grip, Stussy struggled to speak. Hearing her words, Wood calmed down and released her. Others in the underworld, like Lone Shark King Dufeld, have long been hostile to you. It's unclear who leaked the intel to Kaido, but regardless, their actions have only made our plan more effective, haven't they? Rubbing her reddened neck, Stussy smiled confidently once again. The Big Mom pirates and the Beast's pirates had long been at odds due to conflicting interests. But despite their rivalry, neither side was eager to go to war, fearing that it would benefit the other emperors or the Navy. But if Big Mom and Wood were seen as aligning, how would Kaido react? There was no doubt that the delicate balance of power between the two crews would be disrupted. Kaido would likely assume that an alliance between Big Mom and Wood was meant to target his Beast's pirates. If this rivalry escalated into a full-blown conflict, it would be exactly what the world government wanted, tipping the scales in their favor. However, this situation provided no benefits to Wood, as it would destroy his neutral standing. Whether Wood left Whole Cake Island or not, Kaido would likely believe that he and Big Mom had struck a deal. Knowing Kaido's nature, he would probably make the first move against either the Big Mom pirates or Wood's company. Big Mom's crew would be difficult to tackle, so it was more likely that Kaido would target Wood's weapons company first. In a sense, the moment you set foot on Whole Cake Island, our mission was already half complete. Even if we don't actively stir up trouble between Big Mom and Kaido during the tea party, Kaido won't sit idly by. Or perhaps, after leaving Todo Land, you could pay Kaido a visit and share a drink with him? With that, Stussy decided not to linger any longer. She handed over some documents the Navy needed and quickly left, wary that Wood's temper might flare up and lead to her demise. Damn it. I knew this mission wouldn't be simple. As Stussy had pointed out, even if Wood tried to make amends with Kaido later, would Kaido believe him? If Big Mom continued to exploit the situation, Kaido might decide to kill Wood the moment he stepped onto his territory. The next morning, Wood was woken by the sound of Baron Tamago knocking on his door. It was time for Big Mom's tea party. The party was being held at the largest castle on Whole Cake Island, where Big Mom herself resided. Though it was called a tea party, it was more like a grand banquet. Only those with a certain status on the seas were invited. As one of the 4 emperors, Big Mom was one of the most powerful figures in the world. Unlike Wood, who reluctantly attended the party, many others had gone to great lengths just to be there, hoping to curry favor with powerful figures. When Wood and Robin, both dressed to impress, arrived at the venue, they recognized many familiar faces. The guests weren't just pirates or underworld figures. There were also princes and princesses from various kingdoms dressed in formal attire. In the Grand Line, with its countless islands and nations, many kingdoms preferred to place their trust in powerful pirate crews rather than the Navy. Though the Navy's influence was strong, they couldn't be everywhere, while the flag of a pirate crew could offer immediate protection. For some islands, a pirate flag was a greater deterrent than the presence of Marines. It wasn't surprising to see princes and princesses at Big Mom's tea party. Some of their kingdoms were under her protection. The tea party wasn't just a gathering for fun. It was more like the annual meeting of a massive corporation. Underworld figures weren't just showing up to pay their respects to Big Mom, many were there to deliver the protection money they owed her. That's right, among the 4 emperors, both the Big Mom pirates and the Beast's pirates had a hand in controlling the underworld. Without strong enforcers, There was no way to maintain order in such a lawless place, and even powerful figures like Doflamingo couldn't do it alone. Both the Big Mom pirates and the Beasts pirates collected large sums of protection money from the underworld every year, and the princes and princesses attending the tea party were there to pay their annual tributes. Some were also there to seek protection from Big Mom's crew. After all, the Big Mom pirates weren't just any crew. Their reputation alone was enough to deter most threats, but protection didn't come cheap. It depended on what you could offer to earn the right to fly their flag. For instance, Fishman Island, located 10,000 meters beneath the Sabati archipelago, had once been under Whitebeard's protection. After Whitebeard's death during the Paramount War, Fishman Island turned to Big Mom for protection. In exchange, the island had to deliver large quantities of sweets and treasures to the Big Mom pirates every year. It was through this arrangement that the Tomate Bako eventually ended up in Big Mom's hands. But with Wood's arrival, the situation on Fishman Island had changed. With heroes like Fisher Tiger and Queen Atoheim still alive, and under the protection of Wood's Weapons Company, no one dared to touch the island, even without flying the flag of an emperor. At the tea party, aside from guests from all corners of the sea, several members of the Big Mom pirates were in attendance, though not many. The reason was simple: Big Mom had too many children and husbands, more than she could remember, and not everyone was qualified to attend such an important event. Aside from a few powerful combatants, only the 3 suite commanders and some high-ranking ministers were allowed to attend. Today, Pudding was especially happy. At only 15 years old, she wore a white lace dress, her chestnut hair tied into cute twin tails, with long bangs covering most of her forehead. Though she was still young, her figure had already developed quite attractively. As Big Mom's 35th daughter, Pudding had never been one of her mother's favorites due to her young age and average strength. Despite her talent for deception and the fact that she was the second most beloved sister in the Charlotte family, she was rarely invited to such important occasions as Big Mom's tea parties. But just a few days ago, her brother Prospero had told her that their mother wanted her to attend this tea party, and that she should dress up nicely. Naturally, Pudding was thrilled. As a member of the three-eyed tribe with average strength, Pudding had always been disliked, if not outright despised, by her mother, Big Mom. This time, however, it seemed Big Mom had changed her mind about her, finally valuing her as a member of the family. Normally, Big Mom's tea parties were reserved for her most promising children or key members of the family. Not being one of the 34 ministers, Pudding had never qualified before, so it was understandable that she was overjoyed. Chapter 326, Wood's Conquerors Hockey. As Wood sat nearby, enjoying the feast and watching the kingdom representatives shout bids in the 100 million of Baileys, his expression froze for a moment. He had never imagined that the 4 emperors could make money so easily, even more effortlessly than his arms-dealing business. The mere act of Big Mom's pirates offering a year's protection could drive the price up to such astronomical figures. If that's the price for just 1 year of protection, then the total sum the Big Mom pirates collected annually must be astronomical. However, upon further thought, it wasn't surprising. After all, the 4 emperors' pirates are powerful enough to rival the Navy headquarters. Having their flag flying over your island is akin to being untouchable. Even the allied nations of the world government pay the celestial dragons hefty tributes, known as the heavenly tribute, for protection. But when it comes down to it, the 4 emperors' flag offers better protection than the Navy's forces. If you're going to spend money anyway, why not choose the safer option of the 4 emperors' protection? That's why the kingdom representatives were so desperate to get their hands on that flag. After the bidding for protection was over, it was time for the islands already under Big Mom's protection to pay their annual tribute. Some of them, unable to continue paying, had their flags reclaimed. This was why, despite Big Mom offering protection spots at every tea party, the number of islands under her protection always remained steady. Once the tributes from the various kingdoms and islands were collected, it was time for the underworld emperors to pay their shares. Even the most prominent figures in the underworld had to bow their heads before the overwhelming power of the 4 emperors. To continue operating and ensure a certain level of protection, paying a share to the 4 emperors was essential. Even for someone as influential as Doflamingo. Of course, there was one exception in the room. A certain dark-haired man whose status in the underworld was second only to Big Mom herself. While the other underworld emperors were handing over their tributes, this man nonchalantly focused on his food, seemingly oblivious to the proceedings around him. Rules are made by the strong, and those rules only apply to the weak. There was no doubt that Wood was also an emperor of the underworld, and his influence was the largest among them. Typically, he too would be expected to pay a share to both Big Mom and Kaido. But Wood had never paid them a single Bailey, and neither the Big Mom pirates nor the Beasts pirates had ever come after him for it. This was the mark of true strength. Wood's Weapons Company had grown immensely powerful. While it might have been acceptable for him to avoid paying tribute while staying out of sight, Now that he was personally attending Big Mom's tea party, if he didn't make some gesture, it would tarnish Big Mom's reputation. Before this, the underworld emperors and other guests wouldn't dare comment on the situation between the two giants. Big Mom's Pirates and Wood's Weapons Company. But now, with all the other underworld emperors paying their dues, and Wood sitting there doing nothing, how would the rest of the emperors perceive this? The underworld maintains its order not only because each of us has carved out our own territories but also thanks to the stabilizing force of Big Mom's Pirates and the Beast's Pirates. So paying a share to these two pirate crews is entirely reasonable. However, if someone breaks these rules, wouldn't that cause the rest of us to feel that things are unfair? The one who spoke was Doflamingo. Due to their past grievances, Doflamingo had been uneasy ever since learning that Wood would be attending Big Mom's tea party. However, he soon realized that Wood's presence here wasn't necessarily a bad thing. As Wood's Weapons Company continued to grow stronger, even establishing ties with the Golden Emperor Tesoro, Doflamingo felt that revenge was becoming more and more impossible. At least for now, the Don Quixote family had no chance of defeating Wood's Weapons Company. But just because Doflamingo's family couldn't deal with Wood didn't mean that other powers on the sea couldn't. So after confirming that Wood had entered the seas of Todo Land, Doflamingo spread the news that Wood had come to Whole Cake Island and was planning to join Big Mom's pirates through the underworld. That's right. The one who leaked the information before Stussy was none other than the current warlord of the sea, Doflamingo. Whether or not Wood truly intended to join Big Mom's pirates didn't matter. The information could be half true, half false, but the key was how Kaido would react. And now, Doflamingo was trying to rope the other underworld emperors into pressuring Wood as well. With Doflamingo's words, Wood now had no choice but to respond. If Wood backed down and offered a tribute to Big Mom's pirates, then he would also have to pay a share to Kaido's crew. And once he paid once, the next time he refused, neither crew would let him off easily. But if Wood refused, he would undoubtedly offend all the underworld emperors in attendance, not to mention it would damage Big Mom's authority. Big Mom wasn't stupid. She could tell that Doflamingo was trying to use her to settle a personal grudge with Wood. However, despite her frustration, the current situation meant that Wood's response would directly affect her reputation. So, for the moment, she put down her cake and directed her gaze toward Wood, who sat nearby. There's an old saying that really rings true. There are no wrong nicknames, only poorly chosen ones. The nickname Joker suits you perfectly, Doflamingo. A clown who thrives on spectacle. You all pay a share of your profits to Big Mom's pirates and the Beast's pirates because you're weak and belong to the protected class. Without the protection of the four emperors, your little empires would be swept away by the first rival to come along. But Wood's Weapons Company is different. Even in our dealings with the Big Mom pirates and the Beast's pirates, we are equals. You call yourselves emperors of the underworld, but the truth is, you're nothing more than a pack of beaten dogs, barely scraping by in the shadows because you couldn't survive in the open sea. You fear the Navy and the world government, but do you think I'm afraid? Every year, the world government and Navy come begging me for help. So do you really believe we're on the same level? Doflamingo had hoped to unite the other underworld emperors in pressuring Wood. But he hadn't expected Wood to be this fearless, not only taking up the challenge but openly mocking all of the underworld emperors, likening them to stray dogs. You may be a famous traitor of the Navy, Wood, but don't get too full of yourself. Perhaps no one here in the underworld can rival your weapons company, but if we all join forces, even you won't be able to handle it. It was the Undertaker, a giant man holding a scythe, who was the first to stand up in response to Wood's taunts. As one of the 6 kings of the underworld, he had been around long before Wood even made a name for himself. Though Wood had gained the reputation of a fearsome ancient weapon, the Undertaker refused to believe that his strength was really all that impressive. Oh? Is that you itching for a fight? Too bad you're the only one who's stepped up. It won't be enough. Since you're all nothing but stray dogs, why not come at me all at once instead of barking from the shadows? Wood's challenge was clearly directed at Doflamingo, but it also implicated the other underworld emperors in the room. Shipping King Ummet and Loan Shark King Dufeld, who had been glaring at Wood with fury, were about to join the Undertaker's side. But when they noticed that Morgans, the president of the World Economy newspaper, and Stussy, the queen of the Pleasure District, were calmly watching from the sidelines. Along with the fact that Doflamingo hadn't made a move, they quickly reconsidered. The Undertaker also noticed the others' reluctance but had already backed himself into a corner. As one of the 6 kings of the underworld, if he sat back down now, he would lose face completely. Join me. Even if he's an ancient weapon, I'm still a king of the underworld. As one of the underworld's leaders, the Undertaker naturally had subordinates of his own. At his command, a figure clad in black, wearing a hood, stepped out to confront Wood. Trash is still trash, No matter how many of you there are. Wood took a step forward, and the solid stone floor beneath him cracked into fragments, sending spiderwebs of fissures outward from his foot. Before the Undertaker or his men could even get close, they felt a massive force bearing down on them. In the next second, all of the Undertaker's men, except for the Undertaker himself, collapsed to the ground, their eyes rolling back as they lost consciousness. Thud. 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 As Wood's overwhelming presence spread across the island, more and more people, even those scattered across Whole Cake Island, began to fall unconscious without even realizing what was happening. Conqueror's hockey. The Undertaker mumbled, his mind reeling as he looked around at his fallen subordinates. Then, in the blink of an eye, Wood disappeared from his sight. Before the Undertaker could react, his vision was filled with a blazing slash of blue flames. Hyaki Yagio style. Elemental sword, Aondan. As the sound of a sword being sheathed echoed, Wood reappeared behind the Undertaker, who stood frozen in place. The onlookers were still in shock, unsure of what had just happened, when the Undertaker's massive scythe split in two, and a blue flame erupted from a deep slash across his chest. Before any blood could spill from the wound, the intense heat of the blue flames evaporated it, and the flames quickly engulfed the Undertaker's body, turning him to ash. For a brief moment, the onlookers swore they saw a beautiful woman, holding a blue lantern, guiding the Undertaker's soul to the afterlife. The irony of it all was not lost on them. The Undertaker, who had made his fortune dealing with the dead, now had his soul ferried away by another. As the realization dawned on the crowd, they turned their terrified gazes toward Wood, who stood with his sword drawn. One of the 6 kings of the underworld, the Undertaker, hadn't even lasted a single round against Wood. Though not all of the underworld emperors were renowned for their personal strength, they were still powerful figures in their own right. Yet here, in front of Wood, one of their strongest had been cut down with barely an effort. And Wood possessed that rarest of powers. Conqueror's hockey. This meant that Wood wasn't just a powerful trader of the Navy. He had the qualities of a king. Looks like the 6 kings of the underworld will soon be the 5 kings. What do you say, Doflamingo? It's been a while. Care to step in and give it a try? The other underworld emperors felt their hearts skip a beat as they watched Wood challenge Doflamingo directly. Shipping King Amit and Lone Shark King Dufeld, who had been prepared to fight alongside the Undertaker, now counted themselves lucky. Had they joined him, there would be 2 more bodies on the ground right now. As for Wood's direct provocation, the rest of the emperors simply watched, waiting to see what would happen. There was no way any of them would dare make a move now. In fact, they hoped Doflamingo would step in. After all, with one less giant, there would be more spoils left for the rest of them. Doflamingo's expression was dark and furious. Ever since their battle over a decade ago, he had mastered the awakening of his devil fruit powers. But now it seemed that Wood had grown even stronger than before. Chapter 327, Big Mom offers her daughters freely. It wasn't surprising to Doflamingo that Wood possessed Conqueror's hockey. After all, Wood was now one of the most formidable figures on the seas. Someone without the qualifications of a king would be the strange one here. What shocked Doflamingo, however, was that despite awakening Conqueror's hockey after him, Wood's hockey was far stronger. Those present on Whole Cake Island were no ordinary individuals, yet Wood's Conqueror's hockey had managed to knock out more than half of them. Even an underworld figure like the Undertaker had been mentally shaken by the sheer force of Wood's hockey, proving how terrifyingly powerful it was. What Doflamingo didn't know was that when Wood first awakened his Conqueror's hockey, it wasn't particularly strong. The reason he had progressed so rapidly over the past decade was because of his system. Normally, Conqueror's hockey, unlike armament and observation hockey, cannot be strengthened, it's an innate trait. But through completing numerous system missions over the past decade, Wood had managed to defy this limitation. Even though he hadn't used the world simulation mode in his system, he had run countless life simulations. Each time a simulation ended, he focused on enhancing his hockey and physical attributes, resulting in what should have been an unenhanceable Conqueror's hockey being strengthened to absurd levels. In addition to his Conqueror's hockey, Wood had also elevated his observation and armament hockey to a near impossible degree through continuous simulations over the years. Now, Wood had not only awakened his Conqueror's hockey, but according to intelligence gathered by the Don Quixote family, Doflamingo knew that Wood had displayed a Logia-type devil fruit ability in Alabasta. Seeing how easily Wood had just dispatched the Undertaker, and factoring in all the information he had, Doflamingo realized that he stood no chance against Wood. Yet, if he didn't respond to this public provocation, how could Joker continue to make a name for himself on the seas? Boom. Just as Doflamingo steeled himself to fight Wood, Big Mom suddenly smashed the table in front of her with a single punch. The force of her blow not only shattered the table but caused the entire ground to shake. A massive crack extended from her position, separating Wood and Doflamingo. You two, how long do you plan to keep this up? This is my tea party. Are you disrespecting me, Charlotte Linlin, or do you think nothing of the Big Mom pirates? With Big Mom's angry roar, her three top fighters, Katakuri, Cracker, and Smoothie, immediately closed in, surrounding both Wood and Doflamingo. It was clear that with one command from Big Mom, they would move to subdue both troublemakers. Doflamingo, already aware that he stood no chance, seized the opportunity to step down as Big Mom intervened. As for Wood, he glanced at the three sweet commanders, his aura still pulsing. He hesitated, considering whether he should take this moment to kill Doflamingo. Wood, this is Whole Cake Island, the territory of the Big Mom pirates. Show me some respect, and it'll be better for everyone. If you push things too far, even if you can't leave safely, I doubt your second-in-command will be as fortunate. Big Mom's anger was barely contained. No one had ever dared to cause such a scene at her tea party before. If it hadn't been for Doflamingo's instigation and her desire to recruit Wood, she would have already retaliated. While she wanted to teach Doflamingo a lesson, she couldn't allow Wood to kill him. After all, Doflamingo was still valuable to her, particularly regarding his work with Caesar on the gigantification research. Wood knew that if he fought with everything he had, he could kill Doflamingo and escape despite the pressure from Big Mom and the sweet commanders. But as Big Mom had said, it would take all his strength just to escape alone. Taking Robin with him would make it impossible. Doflamingo could be killed another day. But if he clashed with the Big Mom pirates now, not only would Robin's life be in danger, but Giant's mission would also likely fail. After considering the situation, Wood slowly retracted his aura and released the grip on his sword. The sweet commanders, noticing this, also began to relax. Meanwhile, Big Mom, seeing that Wood had backed down, broke into a wide grin. Mama. I've admired you for a long time, Navy Trader Wood. I'm delighted you attended my tea party this time. Though we're both major players in the underworld, you're clearly not the same as Joker and the others. I want to form an alliance between your weapons company and the Big Mom pirates. What do you think? Big Mom's laughter filled the room as she directly revealed her intentions. Wood's decision to back down gave her face, and she acknowledged that he wasn't on the same level as the other underworld figures. As everyone knows, the Big Mom pirates are one of the strongest pirate crews in the world, and your weapons company controls much of the world's finances, with unparalleled connections and technology. If we join forces, even the Beast's pirates or Whitebeard pirates would be no match for us. The Big Mom pirates could help you dominate the entire underworld, controlling all arms trade across the world. In return, you'll support me in becoming the Pirate King, help me defeat the other 4 emperors, and fulfill my dream. Big Mom didn't mince her words, laying out her grand vision in front of the entire underworld's top figures. Though many of them had mixed expressions, none dared speak up. For them, Big Mom was already an insurmountable power. If Wood joined forces with her, they would have no choice but to bow their heads. What Big Mom said wasn't wrong. If Wood agreed, the Big Mom pirates would undoubtedly become the strongest of the 4 emperors. Even Whitebeard wouldn't stand a chance. Even if I were to agree, how could the Big Mom pirates trust someone from the underworld? Alliances are never that simple. Would Wood ever form an alliance with the Big Mom pirates? Of course not. Aside from knowing that the Big Mom pirates were destined to fall, Wood didn't believe that Charlotte Linlin had what it took to become the Pirate King. The 4 emperors, while powerful, all had their own glaring weaknesses. Kaido was a brainless brute obsessed with suicide. Big Mom had her hunger pangs and frequent outbursts of madness. Whitebeard was too old. And Shanks, though level-headed, was missing an arm. 4 great pirate emperors, the so-called rulers of the sea, yet none of them could be considered normal. Either they were too old, sick, or crazy. Wood wanted the Big Mom pirates and Beast's pirates to fight, but only so he could complete his mission. He would even offer Big Mom support if it helped stir conflict. But forming an alliance? No way. It wouldn't benefit him at all. His weapons company had money, people, and influence. Wood was secretly a Navy Vice Admiral and a top figure in the Revolutionary Army. On the surface, he was also a powerful pirate with connections to both Shanks and Whitebeard's crews. Why would he need to hitch his wagon to Big Mom, losing his current advantages? Controlling the entire underworld? The Wood Weapons Company could achieve that on its own without Big Mom's help. But Wood knew that staying out of the spotlight, with a few pawns to take the heat, was far safer than ruling it all outright. An alliance on its own wouldn't be enough to build trust. So, I plan to marry off one of my daughters to you. If you marry one of my daughters, we'll be family, and any doubts between us will be put to rest. It'll make our cooperation even stronger. Ignoring the implications of Wood's previous words, Big Mom pressed on, offering a marriage alliance. In the pirate world, even an alliance sealed by marriage wasn't foolproof. After all, Big Mom had so many sons and daughters. But that didn't matter to Big Mom. To her, her children were merely tools to fulfill her ambitions. She cared little for their personal feelings. The key was that if Wood married one of her daughters, their alliance would be seen as a done deal in the eyes of the world. As Big Mom spoke, she began calling out the names of her daughters, Galette, Charlotte Pudding, and Phlegm. Because of the overwhelming force of Wood's conquerors hockey earlier, most of the guests had fallen unconscious. Pudding and Phlegm, who were among those knocked out, were no exception. However, at Big Mom's command, Prospero used some unknown method to wake both Pudding and Phlegm. Terrified of their mother's wrath, the two girls hurried to her side. As they overheard the surrounding discussions, Pudding and Phlegm slowly realized that their mother had planned to use them as bargaining chips. No wonder they, who normally wouldn't qualify to attend the tea party, had been invited this time. No wonder Prospero had insisted they dress their best. Now they knew why. Pudding felt deeply disheartened. On the one hand, she had hoped that her mother's invitation meant Big Mom had finally changed her opinion of her. But instead, it turned out that she was simply being used. Moreover, despite all her efforts to hide her true self, Pudding realized she had failed to escape her fate. Just like her sister Lola. Phlegm felt similarly downcast. She had always idolized her brother Kitakuri, even before knowing what he truly looked like, and had dreamed of becoming the most beloved sister in the family. While Wood was certainly an impressive man, in Phlegm's eyes, no one could ever surpass her beloved brother, Kitakuri. Unlike Pudding and Phlegm, however, Galette was much more accepting of the marriage proposal. As the 18th daughter of the Charlotte family, Galette was now 29 years old. Compared to her younger sisters, she was more mature. Standing at a normal height for a human woman, with pink hair, yellow eyes, lipstick, and fair skin, Galette was a beauty by most human standards. Unlike the still young Pudding and Phlegm, Galette's thoughts were more grounded, and she didn't object to the marriage arranged by her mother. Anyone with eyes could see that Big Mom didn't truly care for her children. Being sacrificed in a political marriage was inevitable, and Galette had accepted this reality long ago. Their fates were in Big Mom's hands, and resistance was futile. The only option was to accept it. Besides, Galette reasoned that Wood was an exceptional candidate. The Wood Weapons Company was one of the most powerful organizations in the world, and even her mother valued him highly, a testament to his status. On top of that, Wood had just displayed incredible strength. Moreover, in addition to being wealthy, powerful, and highly skilled, Wood was also good-looking. Who wouldn't want to marry such a man? As the Minister of Butter in the Big Mom Pirates, Galette had never been one of the core members of the family, despite her standing. But if she married Wood, her status would skyrocket. Becoming the wife of the Wood Weapons Company's boss would elevate her position within the family, and even her siblings would no longer dare to ignore her. Even Big Mom herself wouldn't be able to control her so easily. Galette, while outwardly strong, was timid and lacked real inner strength. For someone like her, having a powerful husband to rely on wasn't such a bad deal. Chapter 328, Kaido crashes the tea party. Big Mom had summoned Galette, Pudding, and Phlegm, not to offer them all to Wood, but to let him choose one of the three as his wife, forming a bond that would secure the alliance between them. When Wood heard Big Mom's offer, he was so shocked that he almost couldn't believe it. To be fair, Big Mom had indeed chosen three daughters who conformed to human standards of beauty, which showed she had put some thought into it. Galette was at least mature, but Pudding and Phlegm, if Wood remembered correctly, they were only 15 and 14 years old. Was Big Mom seriously suggesting this? What did she take him for? Hearing that Big Mom was planning to arrange a marriage for Wood, Robin, who had been sitting calmly, couldn't remain quiet. She had been by Wood's side for over 10 years, how could she let Big Mom's daughters swoop in? The fact that there was now a variety of options, mature and young, only made Robin even more worried that Wood might make a rash decision. But just as Robin was about to speak, she heard Wood's voice ring out, "Although I am greatly flattered by Big Mom's offer, and these ladies are undoubtedly lovely, do you think the Beast's pirates will simply allow us to form an alliance without interference?" While Wood appreciated the idea of a match between a mature woman or a cute girl, he knew that Big Mom's daughters weren't suitable choices for him. His mind was already thinking of how to politely turn down the offer. As soon as Big Mom saw that Wood had some intention of rejecting her proposal, her laughter stopped, and her face darkened. She was about to speak again when, out of nowhere, the island beneath them violently shook. Boom! With a deafening explosion, a massive figure crashed down from the sky, like a meteorite, directly into the center of the tea party. The impact left a huge crater in the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. "Wood's right, old hag. Did you really think I'd let you form an alliance to come after me?" From the sky descended a colossal figure, as large as Big Mom herself. His black hair flowed behind him, and 2 long dragon horns jutted from his head. His body was covered in dragon scale tattoos, and in his hand, he wielded a giant Kanabo club. This massive man, whose stature matched that of the giants, was none other than Kaido, the Beast King, one of the 4 emperors. Those attending Big Mom's tea party, especially the Big Mom Pirates officers, reacted immediately, activating the highest alert level and surrounding Kaido. Kaido, of course, had not come as a guest. He was here to disrupt the tea party. After receiving Doflamingo's intel, Kaido had been on a small island, contemplating yet another suicide attempt. But upon hearing that Wood might be forming an alliance with Big Mom, he had grown interested. And in typical Kaido fashion, he decided that crashing Big Mom's party sounded like more fun than trying to kill himself. Was Kaido really daring enough to invade Big Mom's territory alone? The answer was obvious. Yes. Known as the strongest creature on land, sea, and air, Kaido possessed a life force that far exceeded human limits. He constantly sought ways to end his life but was unable to die. His current descent from the sky was due to his ability to transform into a dragon and fly. Once he reached Whole Cake Island, he reverted to his human form and dropped from the sky. A fall from tens of thousands of meters would turn any normal person into pulp, but for Kaido, who didn't even bother using his armament haki, it was nothing. Kaido, who had been captured by the Marines numerous times and survived 40 executions, had earned his reputation as an indestructible man. Neither spears nor guillotines could pierce his body, and attempts to execute him with weapons had only resulted in the destruction of those very weapons. This unhuman level of durability wasn't even due to a devil fruit, it was simply Kaido's natural strength. Even with Sea Prism Stone cuffs on, he couldn't be harmed through normal means. The Sweet Commanders, Katakuri, Cracker, and Smoothie, who were all formidable warriors, were instantly on guard. But even together, they couldn't land a significant hit on Kaido. Cracker, using his biscuit fruit, charged forward with his biscuit knights, but Kaido shattered his armor with a single punch, exposing Cracker's true form. Smoothie, on the other hand, drained water from the people around her, using her ring fruit to enhance her strength and grow to giant size. She swung her massive sword at Kaido, but Kaido met her blow with his Kanabo. Boom. The clash between Smoothie's sword and Kaido's Kanabo shook the ground beneath them. Despite Smoothie's immense strength, Kaido's overwhelming power soon sent her flying backward. Katakuri, the strongest of the Sweet Commanders, was the only one who managed to hold his ground. He transformed his arm into Machi, forming a spiked club similar to Kaido's weapon, and coated it in armament haki. Dice Machi. Katakuri's arm, now coated in black haki, transformed into a massive spiked club, spinning like a whirlwind as it shot toward Kaido. Thunder Bagua. Kaido responded with his signature move, coating his Kanabo in lightning and haki. The two weapons collided, creating a massive shockwave that shook the entire island. Though Kaido was pushed back a few steps, his strength quickly overwhelmed Katakuri's attack. With a final, powerful swing, Kaido sent Katakuri's attack hurtling back at him. Katakuri barely had time to dissipate the Machi, but the shockwave and lightning from Kaido's attack still hit him, causing him to cough up blood. This was the overwhelming power of 4 emperors. The Sweet Commanders, each with bounties nearing or exceeding 1 billion baileys, were reduced to nothing more than playthings in front of Kaido. Even among the 3 commanders, only Katakuri was able to stand up to Kaido, and even then, he struggled. Cracker and Smoothie couldn't even scratch him. Kaido, you bastard. Big Mom's fury erupted. Not only had Kaido crashed her tea party, but he had also injured her children. With a roar of rage, she ripped off her pirate hat, transforming it into a massive sword with sharp fangs. Big Mom's soul fruit allowed her to breathe life into inanimate objects, turning them into living weapons known as homies. Her primary homies in battle were Zeus the Thundercloud, Prometheus the Sun, and her hat Napoleon, which transformed into a sword. With Napoleon in hand, Big Mom called forth Zeus and Prometheus. The cloud and the flame hovered by her sides, ready for battle. Emperor's sword, Destruction Blade. Prometheus, the flame homie, grew to 100 times its size, its once childlike face twisting into a ferocious expression. The intense heat radiating from it merged with Napoleon, transforming the already powerful sword into a fiery weapon of destruction. With a swing of her sword, Big Mom sent a massive flaming slash toward Kaido, splitting the ground beneath them. Kaido, recognizing the seriousness of the attack, quickly coated his Kanabo in Conqueror's haki. Purple lightning crackled around the weapon as he prepared to meet Big Mom's strike head-on. Roaring Thunder Bagua. The two attacks collided with earth-shattering force. The shock wave from their clash destroyed the surrounding buildings, and the force of the wind sent everyone at the tea party flying. The clash between 4 emperors shook the entire Whole Cake Island. Even the most powerful pirates present at the tea party were thrown around like ragdolls in the face of the overwhelming power of Big Mom and Kaido. As the battle raged on, the sweet commanders could only watch helplessly. Even they were powerless to intervene in a fight between four emperors. Mom and Kaido can't keep fighting here, or the entire island will be destroyed. Whole Cake Island, the core of Big Mom's territory, was at risk of being completely obliterated by the battle. The commanders quickly began evacuating the guests, trying to minimize the damage, but they were running out of options. I could try to stop them for you, Wood said, stepping forward with a smirk. But what will you offer me in return? Chapter 329, The Battle of the Four Emperors. Even you, Wood, the Navy traitor, won't be able to stop a battle between four emperors, right? What exactly are you planning to do to stop Big Mom and Kaido's fight? The speaker was Prospero, the strategist of the Big Mom pirates. He, like the rest of the crew, knew very well the personalities of both Kaido and Big Mom. Both were extremely self-centered and violent individuals. Once they truly started fighting, the only way to stop them would be to let them decide the outcome or for them to choose to stop on their own. No one else could force them apart. You don't need to know how I plan to do it, just know that I can try to stop them. Do you have a better option at the moment? Wood replied, calmly assessing the situation. Prospero, unsure of what method Wood could use, knew that they indeed had no other way to stop Big Mom and Kaido. So, he asked Wood. What exactly do you want in return, Navy traitor Wood? I haven't quite figured that out yet, but as long as you agree, I trust that the Big Mom pirates wouldn't renege on their promise. After negotiating the terms with Prospero, Wood glanced at the distant figures of Big Mom and Kaido, locked in fierce combat, and a familiar battle hunger appeared on his face. Just as Wood was about to dash towards them, several hands suddenly sprouted from his body, wrapping around his key joints and restraining him. Wood, what are you doing? Isn't this exactly what you wanted? Why go out of your way now? Robin's voice called out, full of concern. She knew that the only reason Wood had come to Big Mom's tea party was to help Giant complete her mission. Now, even without any deliberate provocation, Big Mom and Kaido were already fighting each other. In other words, Wood had already completed the mission assigned to him by the Navy. They could simply watch the fight unfold from the sidelines, witnessing the four emperors weaken each other. There was no need for Wood to get involved. Hearing Wood negotiate with the Big Mom pirates had left Robin puzzled. No matter how much she thought about it, she couldn't figure out what Wood stood to gain from this. Could it be that Wood was seriously considering Big Mom's daughters? Robin, don't stop me. I have my reasons for doing this. Besides, I know my limits. Even though they're four emperors, defeating me won't be that easy. Wood reassured her, confident in his abilities. Originally, Wood had planned to stay out of it and simply watch the spectacle. However, as soon as Kaido and Big Mom clashed, the system issued a new mission to him. Mission name, The Battle of the Emperors. Mission objective, participate in the battle between Big Mom and Kaido and ensure that you remain undefeated. Mission reward, 3 world life simulations. Wood couldn't pass up this special mission. The reward of a world life simulation was too valuable. As his strength grew, the chance of triggering such special missions became rarer. Each journey to another world had earned him great rewards, so he wasn't about to miss this opportunity. The requirement to remain undefeated wasn't too high. It only meant he couldn't lose, not that he had to win outright. Though the opponents were four emperors, Wood's current strength gave him confidence to give it a try. Defeating 4 emperors wasn't within his current capabilities, but challenging them, that was another matter. The negotiations with the Big Mom pirates were merely a way for Wood to seize more benefits now that he had decided to step in. That's why he hadn't yet figured out what terms to demand. Seeing that Wood had made up his mind, Robin slowly released her power. She knew that once Wood decided on something, she wouldn't be able to stop him. Besides, she lacked the strength to prevent him. The hands restraining Wood dissolved into petals, and in an instant, Wood launched himself with such force that the ground beneath him shattered, his body rocketing towards the battle at supersonic speed. At that moment, both Big Mom and Kaido, whose weapons, Napoleon the sword and Kaido's cane abo, had just collided, immediately sensed Wood's rapid approach with their advanced observation haki. Wood, you brat, how dare you? Kaido bellowed. You think you can take us on? You're 100 years too early. Big Mom roared. Both Kaido and Big Mom, as top-tier fighters, had mastered their haki to the highest level. Their extreme observation haki allowed them to glimpse brief flashes of the future. And what they saw in that future filled both 4 emperors with rage. In that brief moment after their clash, their bodies were momentarily off balance and vulnerable. Taking advantage of that opening, Wood appeared before them in an instant, his limbs swiftly enveloped in armament haki. Armament. Iron body fist, rock-splitting sky. Wood's blackened fist slammed into Kaido's abdomen with such force that shockwaves radiated from the point of impact, and Kaido's massive body was sent flying, debris soaring into the air with him. At the same moment, though Big Mom was also momentarily stiff from the previous clash, she still had her homies by her side. While Napoleon was in Big Mom's hand and Prometheus was attached to her sword, Zeus remained floating above her head. Seeing Wood about to attack Big Mom, Zeus rapidly expanded, transforming from a small cloud into a massive thundercloud, and fired a huge bolt of lightning at Wood. Wood, without hesitation, drew his sword, Frost Dew, and with a swift upward slash, he left a gleaming crescent moon in the air. One sword style. Windblade, Atachi. The massive lightning bolt descended like a purple waterfall, but before it could strike Wood, his wind-infused slash cut through the bolt, splitting it cleanly in half. As the lightning dispersed, Wood didn't miss a beat and struck Big Mom's stomach with a powerful knee, sending her flying just like Kaido. From the moment Wood had exploited their brief vulnerability to the instant he sent both 4 emperors flying, everything happened in a flash. Many bystanders hadn't even registered that Wood had moved from his original spot. By the time they noticed, the enormous lightning bolt had been sliced in two, and Big Mom and Kaido were already being hurled off the island at high speed. The scene that had just unfolded was a future that Big Mom and Kaido had foreseen with their observation haki. And because they had predicted that they would be struck, their fury had boiled over. Though they had foreseen the outcome, they had been powerless to prevent it. Zeus had made a token attempt at resistance, but without Big Mom's full power behind it, his attack was easily thwarted by Wood. As for the stunned onlookers, they were left utterly speechless. What were the 4 emperors? They were the emperors of the sea, pirates so powerful that even the world government and navy headquarters struggled to deal with them. To most people, the 4 emperors were akin to natural disasters, forces of nature. And yet here were 2 of the 4 emperors. Kaido and Big Mom. Simultaneously being sent flying by a single man. Even if Wood had exploited a moment of weakness after their clash, it didn't change the fact that these were 4 emperors, legendary figures on the seas. Big Mom's immense strength and Kaido's famed invulnerability had been overcome, if only for a moment. If Wood survived this, he would have a legend to tell for a lifetime. Sending 2 4 emperors flying with a punch and a kick. No one on the seas could boast of such a feat. Not even Pirate King Roger could have done that. The 4 emperors' bodies were sent flying dozens of miles through the air before they finally crashed onto one of the 34 islands under Big Mom's control. Kaido landed face first, creating a massive crater on the island, while a great cloud of dust filled the air. But in the next moment, a powerful blast of dragon breath pierced through the dust, aimed straight at the approaching Wood. Ice Emperor magic. Absolute zero. Though Kaido's fiery breath was still miles away, its heat had already caused the temperature in the air around Wood to skyrocket. Wood, still several kilometers from the island where Kaido had landed, watched as the massive dragon breath sped towards him in an instant. With the dragon's fire mere moments from reaching him, Wood placed his hand on the hilt of Frost Dew, using it as a medium to focus his magic. His other hand extended forward, and a large blue magic circle rapidly formed in front of him. As snowflakes began to fall from the sky above Todo Land, the dragon's breath met Wood's outstretched palm, and the temperature plummeted to freezing. The intense heat of Kaido's flame was frozen in an instant. Yes, the fire itself was frozen, and it was happening fast. At first, only the front of the dragon breath was frozen where it touched Wood's hand. But the ice quickly spread down the length of the attack, freezing the flames as it traveled backward. In the world of Mushoku Tensei, magic was usually limited to basic elements like water, fire, earth, wind, and light. More complex elements like ice and lightning required the fusion of 2 or more basic elements. Naturally, fusion magic was more powerful than single-element magic, and Wood's ice magic was a fusion of water and wind elements. In the blink of an eye, Kaido's fiery breath, which had stretched for miles and emitted unbearable heat, was frozen solid. The sight was breathtaking. However, before anyone could fully absorb what had happened, a thunderous dragon roar echoed across the sky, and another dragon breath came shooting out from the island. Kaido's second attack followed the same trajectory as the first, shattering the ice that had frozen his first attack. Massive chunks of ice fell from the sky like shards of broken glass. The overwhelming heat returned, this time overpowering Wood's magic as it tore through the remnants of the frozen breath, bearing down on him once more. While Wood had managed to counter Kaido's first breath with ease, dealing with a second, near-simultaneous attack was proving more difficult. With no other choice, Wood dispelled his magic circle, instead opting to coat his hands in Conqueror's Haki. As the second dragon breath approached, Wood brought both hands together, ready to strike. Conqueror's Meteor Strike. The Haki surrounding Wood's hands took on a silver hue, his signature color for Conqueror's Haki. As Kaido's fiery breath hurtled toward him, Wood brought both hands down in a crushing blow. Boom. The moment Wood's arms collided with the dragon's breath, the clash of his silver lightning and Kaido's fiery attack tore a hole in the sky. Chapter 330, Catching the Black Dragon's Heat with Bare Hands. The sight of Wood leaping through the air and the terrifying dragon breath that had destroyed Pudding Island caused a heavy silence to fall upon everyone present. Whether it was Wood's temporary allies like Stussy, Doflamingo, who had been against Wood in every way, or even the Big Mom pirates, who had reached an agreement with him, all fell into a collective hush. They had known before that the Navy trader, Wood, was powerful, but no one had expected him to be this powerful. There had always been rumors throughout the sea that Wood was the strongest under the 4 emperors and the 3 marine admirals, yet many people had doubted that. They believed that his high position was largely due to the backing of powerful forces behind him. But today, seeing what had unfolded before them, everyone present finally understood that Wood's fame wasn't just due to his connections or business ventures. He was an extraordinarily strong individual in his own right. After striking Kaido's dragon breath and sending it flying back, Wood felt his hands go numb. But before he had time to relax, his sharp observation haki warned him of sudden danger approaching from behind. In an instant, Wood's right hand reached for the hilt of his sword, and as he spun around, he drew it in one fluid motion. Elbaf's spear, Ikaku. A massive sword beam came crashing toward him. Wood barely had time to draw his sword, Tenku, to block it, but the overwhelming pressure immediately knocked him, sword and all, straight into the sea. As Wood was sent flying into the ocean, the gigantic sword energy cleaved through the sea, leaving a trench that stretched for several dozen kilometers across the water. Naturally, the one who had unleashed this attack was Big Mom, riding on the giantified Zeus as she flew through the air. The Ikaku attack, which originated from the giants of Elbaf, was a skill Big Mom had learned during her time living in the Elbaf village. After sending Wood crashing into the sea, the now enraged Big Mom didn't stop there and instead turned her attention back toward Kaido. Heaven's fire. Standing atop Zeus, Big Mom grasped Napoleon in one hand and grabbed Prometheus with the other, hurling him toward the island where Kaido was. As Prometheus transformed into a towering pillar of flame, it struck down upon Chocolate Island, triggering a massive explosion. The extreme heat instantly melted large swaths of chocolate on the island, and just like Pudding Island before it, Chocolate Island was now obliterated by the clash of the 4 emperors. Yet even in the face of such a powerful attack that could destroy an entire island, Kaido, now transformed into his dragon form, bathed in flames as he roared out, emerging unscathed. This strongest creature on land, sea, and air was as tough as ever, with barely a scratch to show. Moreover, as Kaido shot out of the flames, he retaliated by unleashing another blast of burrow breath aimed at the airborne Big Mom. The burrow breath Kaido used this time, however, wasn't the fiery heat blast from before. Instead, it consisted of countless razor-sharp wind blades. These wind blades were not only incredibly dense but also razor-sharp, each one as powerful as the flying slashes of a master swordsman, easily capable of slicing through armor and stone. Tendai Jizaingen. Big Mom responded to the wind blades with a wide-range attack of her own. Manipulating Zeus, Big Mom unleashed a barrage of lightning bolts in all directions. These bolts weren't just mindless discharges, each one had a mind of its own, capable of changing direction to target anything that tried to evade them. As the wind blades and lightning clashed in the air, the sky itself seemed to change color, and a massive tsunami surged up from the sea, capsizing many ships that had been attempting to flee Tato land. This can't continue. Prospero muttered as he and Big Mom's other children stood on the shoreline of Cake Island, watching the fierce battle in the distant sky, their faces heavy with worry. Although Wood had successfully drawn Big Mom and Kaido away from Cake Island, the battle was still taking place within the territory of Tato land. If the fight dragged on, even if Cake Island was spared, the other islands would suffer. Big Mom's children wanted to stop the battle, but they simply didn't have the power to intervene. Even the elite members of the Big Mom pirates, the Sweet Commanders and the 3 Calamities, were no match for the full force of the 4 emperors. And since the fight was taking place in the sky above the ocean, there was little they could do. Most of them didn't have the ability to fly, and even if they did, engaging in a battle in the air against the 4 emperors was extremely dangerous. Besides, most of the key fighters in the Big Mom pirates were devil fruit users. Falling into the sea would spell disaster for them. Where's Wood? There's no way he's dead just from one of Mama's Ikaku attacks, right? One of Big Mom's children asked anxiously. Previously, when they had negotiated with Wood, they had been gambling on luck. But after witnessing his display of strength, they now genuinely placed their hopes on him. I don't know if he survived the Ikaku, but based on what we've seen, Wood's power seems to come from a devil fruit. Now that he's fallen into the sea, even if he wasn't killed by the attack, he might drown. For all devil fruit users, seawater was a natural enemy, with few exceptions among those with extremely strong zone powers. In Smoothie's opinion, Wood might not have died outright, but after being thrown into the sea, he likely no longer had the strength to fight. Meanwhile, the battle between Big Mom and Kaido continued, with neither four emperors holding back their power. Guests who had came to attend Big Mom's tea party were in a state of panic. Normally, the four emperors refrained from fighting, but when they did, the destruction was on a colossal scale. Watching a clash between four emperors was a rare opportunity, but most of the people in Totolan now wanted nothing more than to escape. There was no other option. Battles between the four emperors were simply too dangerous. The destruction of island after island proved that this was far beyond their ability to handle. Although Cake Island was currently safe, it was only a matter of time before the battle reached them. Once Big Mom and Kaido fully unleashed their power, they wouldn't care who or what was in their way. The ships that had been capsized by the tsunami were proof of that. Those who had tried to flee in terror had been the first to fall. At this moment, few people on Cake Island remained calm, with only strong individuals like Doflamingo, Stussy, and Robin maintaining their composure. Although the battle between the four emperors was terrifying, there were still many powerful fighters present. As long as they weren't directly targeted by Big Mom or Kaido, they had enough confidence to leave Totoland safely, even if the entire nation was destroyed. Robin, your boss was just hit by Big Mom's Ikaku and fell into the sea. Even if the best fishman swimmers went to save him, they wouldn't be able to withstand the aftershocks of the fight. In other words, your boss is most likely already dead. Doflamingo said, his voice dripping with amusement. The grin on Doflamingo's face showed that he was not only unafraid of the current situation but actually enjoying it. Truthfully, after seeing Wood simultaneously knock back both Big Mom and Kaido earlier and using advanced hockey techniques that even Doflamingo hadn't mastered, he had been deeply shaken. He and Wood had a long-standing grudge, and during the tea party, he had continuously provoked Wood. Seeing Wood's overwhelming strength had filled him with fear. But now, the tables had turned. After being blindsided by Big Mom's sneak attack, Wood had taken a full hit from Ikaku and was sent into the ocean. Doflamingo didn't know what kind of devil fruit Wood had eaten, but he knew that seawater was the ultimate enemy of all devil fruit users, with no exceptions. Moreover, although Wood had connections with the Fishman Island, it seemed he had only brought Nico Robin to this tea party. Even if he had brought Fishman along, they wouldn't have been able to survive in the center of Big Mom and Kaido's battle, where the area was consumed by fire and lightning. Even Doflamingo, confident as he was in his own strength, wouldn't dare claim he could enter that area unscathed. So, what exactly do you want from me, Doflamingo? Robin asked coldly. Although she hadn't interacted with Doflamingo much, she knew of his reputation and held no affection for him, especially considering his past conflicts with Wood. Don't be so cold, demon child. Truthfully, I've always admired your work. Now that your boss is dead, haven't you thought about finding a new master? Your strength is decent, but without Wood, do you really think you and Ruth can hold on to that vast empire? Golden Emperor Tesoro is working with you mostly because of Wood, isn't he? If he learns Wood is dead, do you think he'll just sit idly by and let you keep that treasure trove? Doflamingo's signature laugh rang out as he spoke, grinning all the while. Robin, still expressionless, looked at Doflamingo. Her voice dripped with sarcasm as she replied. Oh? So you're suggesting that before Tesoro makes his move, I should find a new, stronger backer? And this supposed backer is you, Doflamingo? Why not? Doflamingo continued with a smirk. In the underground world, aside from Wood, I hold the most power. If you join my Don Quixote family, you'll become one of my own, and I always protect my own. I'll even guarantee that your status in my family will be the same as it is now. Second only to me. For a long time, Doflamingo had coveted Wood's weapons business and the massive network it had built. In fact, most people in the New World had their eyes on it. Several people had attempted to copy Wood's business model, but none had succeeded, as no one could match the advanced technology that Wood's company possessed. As a result, Wood's company had a monopoly on the weapons trade. With Wood now presumed dead, his business empire was up for grabs, and Doflamingo couldn't resist the opportunity. However, even in death, Wood's empire was formidable. With capable individuals like Nico Robin and Ruth under his banner, plus a host of powerful fishmen and cutting-edge weapons, Doflamingo knew that trying to take over Wood's operations by force would be costly. So the best strategy, in his mind, was to win over Nico Robin. Although the Don Quixote family had clashed with Wood in the past, Doflamingo had no personal enmity with Robin. According to his sources, Robin held the purse strings of Wood's weapons empire, commanding immense influence and respect on Dark Abyss Island. If she were to join the Don Quixote family, Doflamingo believed he could take over Wood's entire empire without too much trouble. Considering the enmity between Wood and you, the members of his pirate crew must be well aware of it. Stussy interjected, interrupting Doflamingo's pitch. If you were to join the Don Quixote family, those loyal fishmen would revolt. So, if you're thinking of switching sides, I'd be more than happy to welcome you into our fold, Nico Robin. Clearly, Doflamingo wasn't the only sharp mind present. As he tried to recruit Robin, Stussy had also appeared, flashing her long legs in black stockings and holding her handbag. Like Doflamingo, she sought to claim the massive treasure that was Wood's empire. Seeing Stussy step in to interfere, Doflamingo's face darkened with frustration. Chapter 331, Kaido under heavy fire. In terms of status and strength in the underworld, Stussy naturally could not compare to the Joker, Doflamingo. However, Doflamingo didn't dare underestimate the woman in front of him. Others might simply think Stussy was not an ordinary woman, but Doflamingo, who had some connections with the world government, knew that there was a shadow of the world government behind her. Well, Nico Robin, as long as you agree to work with us, we not only have the power to revoke the Navy's bounty on you but also to maintain your current position. However, in certain situations, you will have to follow our orders, and half of the profits from the weapons company must be handed over to us annually. Stussy, being a member of Cypher Pol Zero agent, had the backing of the world government and the Celestial Dragons, so her promises were not empty words. But Robin, who held deep resentment toward the Celestial Dragons, was clearly never going to align herself with the world government. You two don't need to argue anymore. The conditions you've offered are certainly tempting. However, your offers assume that our captain is no longer with us. Do you really believe that being hit by Big Mom's Aikiko would be enough to kill him? Robin had immense trust in Wood's strength, a trust that even surpassed her belief in herself. It was true that devil fruit users falling into water was troublesome, but when had she ever said that their captain was a devil fruit user? Doflamingo and Stussy were about to retort, but to their astonishment, as if to prove Robin's words true, the battlefield in the distance underwent a dramatic change. The sky over Tato Land was filled with rampaging lightning and flames, making it impossible for others to approach the area. Yet, just as Kaido's burrow breath and Big Mom's flame-infused sword, Napoleon, were about to clash again, the sea beneath them suddenly began to freeze over at an incredible speed. The previously scorching hot air dropped to freezing temperatures in an instant, and massive ice spikes erupted from the frozen sea, shooting directly toward Big Mom and Kaido in the sky. Seeing the dense barrage of ice spikes, both Big Mom and Kaido were forced to alter the trajectory of their attacks midair. Kaido's burrow breath swept across the sky, instantly evaporating a large number of ice spikes and even splitting the frozen sea below in half. Big Mom, wielding Napoleon, encased in flames, unleashed a fiery strike that instantly evaporated the ice spikes before her, and with her sharp observation haki, she caught sight of Wood's figure hidden among the ice. Clang! The sound of metal clashing echoed through the air as Wood's sword, Asetsu, collided with Big Mom's Napoleon. The explosive force of their sword clash sent shockwaves in all directions. The frozen sea beneath them was sliced into irregular chunks of floating ice, as if the ice itself were as fragile as tofu under the pressure of their clash. The ice-coated swords and Big Mom's flame-infused blade generated an intense physical reaction at the point of impact, with both sides attempting to erode and destroy the other. In the end, as sparks flew and ice shards fell, Wood and Big Mom were forced to separate, each retreating 100 meters. Wood, now completely soaked, had bright silver rune markings glowing brilliantly through his drenched shirt. What a monster! Even with my current strength and physique, and using the power of the heart of the gods, I still couldn't gain the upper hand in that clash? Wood muttered in disbelief. Did I see that right? That brat actually held his own in a direct clash with Mama, neither gaining nor losing ground. While Wood marveled at Big Mom's strength, Zeus and Prometheus were equally shocked by the outcome of the clash. Having been with Big Mom for so long, they knew her power better than anyone. Their Mama, like Kaido, possessed a special body. Kaido's special body came from his terrifying physical strength and near-mortal regenerative abilities. Meanwhile, Big Mom's special body was her inhuman, almost monstrous, natural strength. At the age of 5, Big Mom had been capable of tearing apart a bear with her bare hands. When she swatted a mosquito off a giant, she nearly killed the giant in the process. Big Mom's body had once been nearly indestructible, but after the disappearance of Mother Carmel, that advantage seemed to have disappeared. Most people believed this was due to the effects of her soul fruit model, soul-type devil fruit, which seemed to enhance her soul power rather than her physical strength. Among the 4 emperors, Whitebeard was likely the strongest overall, Kaido the toughest to beat, and Big Mom the strongest in raw physical power. As for red-haired Shanks, he likely had the strongest haki. After all, he was known as the user of the face fruit. As the 4 emperors with the greatest physical power, even Kaido would struggle against Big Mom in an arm wrestling contest. Yet now, Wood had fought her to a standstill. How could anyone not be astonished? Just as Wood and Big Mom had finished their sword clash, Kaido once again unleashed a blast of burrow breath aimed at the two. Faced with Kaido's incoming attack, Big Mom and Wood reacted differently. Big Mom maneuvered Zeus to fly out of harm's way, while Wood, wielding his twin blades, sliced through Kaido's burrow breath, splitting it apart. Thanks to the power of the Heart of the Gods, Wood's strength had increased significantly. His ice-infused slash not only froze and tore through Kaido's burrow breath, but the residual force of the attack even managed to slash Kaido's face, sending a spray of blood into the air. But it didn't end there. As Wood delivered his slash toward Kaido, his body moved rapidly through the air. Each step of Wood's moonwalk echoed with a sonic boom, propelling him forward at an incredible speed. Kaido, his face slashed, was about to roar in anger, but he realized that Wood had already disappeared from his sight. The next moment, as if Kaido's observation haki had sensed something, he gave up his plan to use another burrow breath and instead swiped his dragon claws toward a specific spot. Wood, you're still too inexperienced. Before my observation haki, you have no chance of catching me off guard. Kaido roared in triumph as his dragon claws tore toward the spot where Wood's figure appeared. But Kaido's laughter was cut short when he realized that his claws had passed right through Wood's body. It was only an afterimage left behind by Wood's rapid movement. The real Wood had appeared behind Kaido's back, already in position for a draw slash. Hyaki Yagio two-sword style, Snow Maiden. As Wood drew his swords, the image of a beautiful woman in white appeared behind him, her figure blending with the falling snowflakes. Two radiant slashes shot toward Kaido's back, expanding as they flew. Kaido's scales shattered under the force of the attack, leaving a massive X-shaped wound on his body. Blood sprayed out, and the ice properties of the slashes froze half of Kaido's massive body. So what if your observation haki saw it? In your current state, you can't keep up with me. Wood taunted. Like all Zone Devil Fruit users, Kaido's Fish Fruit model, Azure Dragon Devil Fruit, gave him access to three forms: his human form, his hybrid form, and his full dragon form. Kaido's dragon form allowed him to fly and unleash devastating attacks, making it his most powerful state. However, there was a drawback. His massive dragon form made him less agile, turning him into a massive, slow-moving target. While his offensive power and defense were absurdly high, Kaido's enormous size made him vulnerable to fast opponents, unless they were also of his caliber. Meanwhile, Big Mom, having dodged Kaido's attack earlier, circled around in the sky. She had intended to go after Wood for payback, but Prometheus spoke up. Mama, calm down. We can deal with that brat later. Right now, Kaido's injured. This is our best chance to finish him off. If we kill him, you'll be the ultimate winner. Big Mom, who had been rampaging after her tea party was disrupted, wasn't in a full-blown food rage. So she hadn't completely lost her senses. Hearing Prometheus' words, Big Mom quickly regained her composure and grinned at the sight of the wounded Kaido. Zeus, Prometheus. Yes, Mama. Both of them responded in unison. Prometheus' flames intensified, while he bit down on the tip of Napoleon's blade. Zeus, in turn, transformed into a massive storm cloud, with the top of Napoleon's blade piercing through him to form a large energy ring. In the next moment, Big Mom, Napoleon, Zeus, and Prometheus all spoke in unison. Mingguang Cannon. The energy ring at the tip of Napoleon unleashed a high-density laser beam, crashing into the sea and sending waves surging as it shot toward the frozen Kaido. The Mingguang Cannon was one of Big Mom's strongest techniques, a joint attack by her three homies, Napoleon, Zeus, and Prometheus. Its power was strong enough to pierce through multiple islands in an instant. Having already been injured and half-frozen, Kaido's massive body fell from the sky, but soon flames erupted from his body, forming a gigantic flaming dragon that encased him. The moment the flaming dragon appeared, the ice that had frozen Kaido's body melted away in an instant. This was one of Kaido's fruit abilities. Flame Dragon Torch. The heat of Kaido's Flame Dragon Torch was even greater than his burrow breath, capable of instantly vaporizing anything it touched. Although Wood's ice magic was powerful, it couldn't withstand the continuous erosion of Kaido's flames, and it quickly melted away. However, just as Kaido melted the ice and prepared to regroup and take revenge on Wood, Big Mom's Mingguang Cannon struck. Still reeling from his earlier injuries, Kaido stood no chance of blocking Big Mom's powerful attack. In an instant, the flames surrounding Kaido were obliterated by the laser beam, and the thick beam of light shot down like a ray from the heavens, piercing through most of Kaido's body. Old hag, you bastard. Kaido managed to curse with a long, drawn-out snarl before being blasted away by the force of the Mingguang Cannon. Kaido's fortune was that his fall landed him on another island, rather than into the sea. Fantastic. Mama and the Navy trader would have teamed up to defeat the 100 Beasts Kaido. The unexpected turn of events shocked everyone in Big Mom's crew, and they could hardly contain their excitement as they witnessed the scene unfold. Though Big Mom and Kaido's battle had destroyed several islands in Todo Land, if they could eliminate Kaido, it would all be worth it. Wood, brat, my offer still stands. I can overlook what you did to me earlier. As long as you marry one of Brule or the others, the Big Mom pirates will form an official alliance with you. Unlike Prospero and the others, who were rejoicing, Big Mom knew Kaido well enough to understand that the joint attack from her and Wood hadn't killed him. Nonetheless, this was the closest she had ever came to defeating Kaido in their long history of battles. While Kaido might seem like an immortal monster, even he wasn't invincible. If Wood agreed to ally with her, the chances of killing Kaido here were quite high. Chapter 332, What if we actually defeat a four emperors? Big Mom's proposal was undeniably tempting. Combining their strength to take down Kaido right here wasn't entirely impossible. If Kaido died, his territory and forces would naturally fall into the hands of the Big Mom pirates and Wood's weapons company. Wood might even become the next four emperors. While everyone thought Wood might accept Big Mom's offer, to their surprise, Wood did something completely unexpected. He drew his sword and slashed at Big Mom, saying, "Though your proposal sounds good, I'll have to decline. I'm used to being my own boss and don't intend to be anyone's underling. Besides, I don't think you'd allow a new four emperors to rise after Kaido's beasts pirates are defeated." Wood's reasoning made sense on the surface, but his real motivation was the tempting rewards from the system's mission. The task was to participate in the four emperors' battle. If he could remain undefeated, he would be rewarded based on his performance. Simply surviving against Kaido and Big Mom might earn him the lowest tier reward. But if he could wound a four emperors, the second tier reward would come his way. The third tier reward likely involved defeating two four emperors. Though the third tier reward was far off, Wood began to think the second tier might be within reach. He had already wounded Kaido. If he could injure Big Mom as well, he might gain two chances at the All-Worlds life simulation. And as Wood mentioned, teaming up with Big Mom to kill Kaido wouldn't benefit him. Among the four emperors, only Big Mom and Kaido had significant influence in the underworld. They balanced each other out, preventing any one side from becoming too dominant. If one of them were to fall, Wood didn't believe Big Mom would resist taking over his underworld assets. An alliance? That's just a fairy tale for children. How many pirates in this world truly honor their word? Wood's sword strike clashed with Napoleon, Big Mom's weapon, and his refusal completely enraged her. Thunder shock. Big Mom reached out, and purple lightning gathered in her hand before forming a horizontal lightning bolt that shot toward Wood. This attack was similar to Kaido's burrow breath, except instead of fire, Big Mom released lightning. Hyaki Yagio one sword style, Phoenix Flame. Facing the incoming lightning, Wood gripped his sword tightly, and intense fire tribute magic surged through his blade, heating it until it glowed red. Clang! With a sound like a bird's cry, a massive fiery phoenix emerged as Wood swung his sword. The phoenix, its wings aflame, soared through the air, leaving a long trail of fire as it collided with Big Mom's lightning. The clash of fire and lightning created a massive black energy sphere in the sky. When the sphere expanded to its limit, it exploded, sending a 100-meter-height tsunami crashing down. The explosion's lightning ionized the seawater, producing hydrogen and oxygen. What happens when fire encounters this mixture? The result was an intense chemical reaction, leading to an even larger explosion. Amidst the chaos, Wood used a combination of instant transmission and moonwalk to move rapidly, dodging the explosion and quickly closing the distance to Big Mom. While Big Mom wielded a sword, she wasn't a true swordsman. Her strength lay in her devil fruit abilities and her overwhelming natural power. Though not a swordsman, Big Mom's sheer strength and the power of Zeus and Prometheus allowed her to deliver devastating strikes akin to natural disasters. But a true swordsman relies not only on brute force but also on swordsmanship and combat techniques. If Wood could force Big Mom into close combat, with the power of the heart of the gods augmenting his abilities, he was confident he could overpower her with his superior swordsmanship. Zeus provided Big Mom with flight, but she wasn't as agile in the air as Wood with his moonwalk. After a few quick maneuvers, Wood broke through the explosion smoke screen and appeared right in front of Big Mom. With both hands gripping his sword, Wood unleashed a flurry of high-speed slashes at Big Mom. As he had anticipated, Big Mom, though immensely powerful, was not as skilled in combat techniques. Her strength allowed her to block Wood's attacks, but she was clearly struggling against his rapid onslaught. No matter how powerful one's observation hockey was, it was useless if their body couldn't keep up with their awareness. And no matter how strong their armament hockey, it couldn't block an endless barrage of strikes. Thunder drum. Stolen fire. Under Wood's relentless barrage, Big Mom was forced to retreat. Seeing her struggle, Zeus and Prometheus broke free from her control and attacked Wood of their own accord. As homies, Zeus and Prometheus had their own consciousness and could act independently to attack enemies. However, even though they could attack autonomously, their full power could only be unleashed under Big Mom's control, thanks to the powers of the Soul Fruit model, Soul-type Devil Fruit. Watching as Zeus released lightning and Prometheus charged at him like a fireball, Wood switched to wielding his sword with one hand while using his other hand to conjure a blue magic circle in front of him. Imperial Water Magic, Water Dragon Swirl. A violent torrent of water erupted from the magic circle, quickly forming a fierce water dragon that shot toward Zeus's lightning and Prometheus. Lightning can usually disperse water, but Zeus's thunder drum wasn't strong enough to evaporate the massive water dragon Wood had summoned. The lightning dissipated into the water, vanishing into the raging currents. The water dragon now crackled with electricity as it collided head-on with Prometheus. Though a Hummy, Prometheus had a physical form with elemental attributes. As a fire-type entity, Prometheus's greatest weakness was water. Before Prometheus could react, the massive water dragon swallowed him whole. The electrically charged water delivered a full-body shock to Prometheus, sending him flying as the water dragon charged straight toward Zeus. Big Mom wanted to stop the water dragon, but before she could act, wood slashes forced her to block once again. In the end, the roaring water dragon slammed into Zeus, creating a large hole in his cloudy body. It was common knowledge that Big Mom's ability to fly came from Zeus, who had transformed into a storm cloud. Now, with a massive hole torn through Zeus, he could no longer support Big Mom's weight, causing her to plummet toward the ground. Unexpectedly, as Big Mom fell, she showed remarkable reflexes, grabbing hold of Wood's ankle and using her immense strength to hurl him away violently. Zeus quickly restored his form and, after a rapid spin in the air, dove down to catch Big Mom. However, Wood, now hurtling through the air, unleashed a wind blade, slicing Zeus in half once again. Boom. Just how strong was Big Mom's physical power? If Wood had to describe it, he would compare it to the legendary giant Thor's. Wood, having been grabbed by the ankle and thrown by Big Mom, felt as if he had been hit by a speeding armored vehicle. With a deafening crash, Wood's body hit the ground, carving a massive trench through an island, nearly splitting it in two. The rocks and trees along his path offered no resistance as they were smashed to pieces by Wood's impact. As for Big Mom, her situation wasn't much better. With Zeus cut in half once again by Wood's scythe weasel, he failed to catch her in time. Big Mom's body plunged into the sea, creating a huge splash. When Zeus and Prometheus finally reformed and dragged Big Mom onto a nearby island, she hadn't lost her ability to fight, but being drenched in seawater had left her temporarily weakened. The onlookers were stunned by what they had just witnessed. Especially the members of the Big Mom pirates. They couldn't understand why the Navy traitor Wood, who had just teamed up with their mother to injure Kaido, suddenly turned against her. Could it be that Wood's goal wasn't just to defeat Kaido but to take down 2 four emperors at once? In the past, most of those present would have dismissed such a notion as delusional. But after witnessing the chaotic battle that had just taken place, they suddenly realized they had been underestimating Wood all along. Many had assumed Wood's success was due to his connections and advanced weapons technology. Rumors that Wood was second only to the 4 emperors and the Navy admirals had circulated, but few took them seriously. After all, as the mastermind behind Wood's weapons company, Wood rarely fought publicly, leading many to believe that the stories of his strength were exaggerated. After today's 4 emperors battle, however, everyone realized they had seriously underestimated this man. This was no second to the 4 emperors or below the admirals situation. Wood was undoubtedly 4 emperors level himself. What had started as a battle between Big Mom and Kaido had now turned into a 3-way brawl, with Wood holding his own against the 2 4 emperors. Based on the earlier clash where the Sweet 3 generals had tried to fight Kaido, it was clear that the 4 emperors operated on an entirely different level. Even the 3 generals, the disasters, and the warlords of the sea were mere children compared to them. Yet Wood had not only inserted himself into the fight but also managed to wound both Big Mom and Kaido. Clearly, he was no ordinary warlord. Even if he couldn't defeat Kaido or Big Mom in a one-on-one fight, he could certainly hold his ground. From that perspective, Wood was already on par with the 4 emperors. Clang. The clash between Kaido's spiked club and Wood's twin blades caused the island they stood on to split in half. Before either could catch their breath, Big Mom unleashed another Ikaku, engulfing both of them and completely destroying the island. Originally a duel between Big Mom and Kaido, the fight had turned into a 3-way melee after Wood's intervention. Despite taking both Wood slashes and Big Mom's Mingwang cannon, Kaido's monstrous vitality kept him from dying or losing his ability to fight. After taking a huge swig of sake, Kaido maintained his hybrid form, a mix of human and dragon. In this form, Zone-type Devil Fruit users could utilize the abilities of their animal forms while retaining their human posture. Although Big Mom had temporarily weakened after her seawater bath, she soon recovered. Of the 3 combatants, it was now Wood, who who initially seemed to have the upper hand, who found himself in the weakest position. When Big Mom had thrown him earlier, his body had carved an entire island in half. Unlike Kaido, whose nearly indestructible body made him nearly immortal, Wood felt like all his bones had been shattered. Though the healing magic circle inscribed on his body quickly mended his injuries and restored his combat abilities, it came at a cost. On the surface, it seemed like Wood had Kaido's regenerative abilities and Big Mom's immense strength, making him seem invincible. But only Wood knew the price he had to pay for this power. Chapter 333, Freezing 4 Emperors with one strike. Wood's recovery abilities and vitality, comparable to Kaido's, were due to the healing magic circle engraved on his body. However, every time he used it, it consumed an enormous amount of magic power. As for his physical strength, which could rival Big Mom's, that came from the power of the Heart of the Gods. But magic power is limited, and the life force consumed by the Heart of the Gods is even more so. Big Mom and Kaido could maintain this high-intensity battle for over half a month, but could Wood do the same? The answer was no. He might be able to match the 4 emperors for a short time using the Heart of the Gods and his magic, even gaining the upper hand in the battle. But if the fight dragged on without him defeating either of them, the one who would eventually fall would be him. It was obvious. A technique like the Heart of the Gods, which burns both energy and life force, wasn't something he could use endlessly. He didn't have that much life to burn. This was why Wood had said before that even facing either Kaido or Big Mom alone would be a tough challenge for him. With limited magic power and life force, Wood simply couldn't sustain such a high-intensity fight for long. Now that he had wounded both Big Mom and Kaido, and the system had confirmed the task completion, Wood decided it was time to withdraw from the battlefield. With a few swift instant transmission steps, he prepared to escape. "You think you can run, brat? Haven't had a fight this good in a long time, and you think you're just going to leave?" Wood's sudden attempt to flee caught Big Mom and Kaido's attention. Both, having suffered at his hands, weren't about to let him slip away so easily. Conquerors C. X2. Despite their ongoing battle, Big Mom and Kaido exchanged a glance, and in a rare moment of unspoken agreement, they stopped fighting each other and unleashed a combined attack on Wood. Conqueror's C was a technique similar to Elbaf's spear, Ikaku. However, since this move was used jointly by Big Mom and Kaido, its power far exceeded that of Ikaku. Seeing the massive energy wave sweeping toward him, Wood cursed silently and had no choice but to turn and defend himself. The runes on his chest shone with unprecedented brilliance, and as his life force burned, the power granted by the Heart of the Gods reached its maximum. A 4 Emperors level combo attack, huh? They really think highly of me. Hyaki Yagyo 2 Sword Style, Ice Attribute. Snow Woman. Hyaki Yagyo's advanced version combined swordsmanship with magic, creating magical sword techniques that fused the speed of swordsmanship with the power of magic. The Snow Woman technique that Wood had used before contained ice magic at the Imperial level. This time, the magic infused into his slash had reached the God level. Though Wood's magical abilities weren't enough to use God-level magic on their own, with the power of the Heart of the Gods burning his life force, he could temporarily unleash such a strike. As his twin blades were drawn, a stunning woman dressed in a white kimono appeared, her graceful smile freezing the surrounding space and time for a brief moment. In this frozen moment, the ethereal Snow Woman reached out and touched the massive Conqueror's Sea energy wave, splitting the towering wave cleanly in two. The silver-blue slash transformed into the ethereal Snow Woman, who continued forward after splitting the energy wave, her momentum carrying her toward Big Mom and Kaido. As the Snow Woman passed through, everything was plunged into a wintry stillness. The roiling sea froze in an instant, and even the moisture in the air turned into falling snowflakes. When the Snow Woman passed between Big Mom and Kaido, thick layers of frost rapidly encased both of them. The island they stood on and the surrounding sea were instantly frozen solid. Having unleashed this strike, Wood felt as if most of the strength had drained from his body. The runes on his chest dimmed, but he forced himself to suppress the fatigue and weakness, using Moonwalk to return swiftly to Cake Island, where he landed beside Nico Robin. "Let's leave," Wood said. Robin didn't question him. Without hesitation, she used her powers to sprout wings, gently supporting Wood as they took to the sky. Neither the Big Mom pirates nor the underworld figures like Doflamingo dared to stop Wood and Robin. Though it was clear that Wood was exhausted, even in his weakened state, he was still the man who had shattered the combined attack of 4 emperors and turned the surrounding battlefield into an icy wasteland. No one wanted to be the one to provoke him now. They could only watch as Wood and Robin left. Not even a minute after Wood and Robin departed, the ice encasing Big Mom and Kaido shattered, and both let out enraged roars. While Big Mom and Kaido wanted to settle the score with Wood, Robin had already carried him far from the whole Cake Island territory. With the vast sea stretching out in every direction, and no Viva card to track him, Finding Wood would be next to impossible. Unable to find their target, and with no outlet for their anger, Big Mom and Kaido naturally resumed fighting each other, venting their frustration. Days later, Wood found himself on a tourist island in the first half of the Grand Line. The island, famous as a summer resort, was fully open to visitors. Wood was lounging by a pool, sitting on a beach chair under the shade of a parasol, reading the latest newspaper with great interest. Four Emperors, Big Mom and Kaido's fierce battle. The man the world underestimated. Just from the headline, it was clear that Morgans, the journalist, had gone full clickbait mode. However, the battle between four emperors had indeed captured global attention, ensuring that Morgan's newspaper had sold out almost immediately. As the head of the news agency and a witness to the battle, Morgans hadn't let this scoop slip away. After leaving Cake Island, he personally penned the article. It was through this newspaper that Wood learned what had transpired after the battle. According to the article, after Wood and Robin escaped, Big Mom and Kaido resumed fighting, and the battle raged for 3 days and nights before finally coming to an end. The paper didn't specify a clear winner, but it mentioned that Kaido had left whole Cake Island injured. The Big Mom pirates had suffered the greatest losses. Of the 34 islands that originally made up whole Cake Island, 24 had been completely destroyed in the battle. Though the main Cake Island remained intact, Big Mom had lost more than half of her territory. As a result, the Big Mom pirates officially declared war on the Beast's pirates. After all, their captain had come uninvited, wreaked havoc in their homeland, and then left without a care in the world. And to make matters worse, Morgans had published the whole event in his newspaper. If the Big Mom pirates didn't respond, they would become the laughingstock of the seas. During the battle between Big Mom and Kaido, Big Mom had gained the upper hand, thanks to the intervention of the Sweet Commanders. Normally, the Sweet Commanders wouldn't be able to stand up to either Kaido or Big Mom. But even a creature as strong as Kaido would eventually grow tired after fighting for so long. With the Big Mom pirates seizing the opportunity to strike, Kaido had been forced to flee the battlefield with injuries. Had it been anyone else, they would have been dead long ago. In conclusion, neither side truly came out ahead in this fight. Big Mom had lost half of her homeland, and Kaido had been injured. The growing tension between the four emperors' crews meant that a full-scale conflict was only a matter of time. I didn't expect Big Mom and Kaido to keep fighting even after we left. What do you think, Robin? If the Big Mom pirates and the Beast's pirates go to war, who will come out on top? Wearing a white bikini that highlighted her alluring figure, Robin handed Wood a glass of juice and asked with a smile. It doesn't really matter who wins. Wood replied. Either way, it's not our concern. I've already accomplished my goal of stirring up conflict between them. If anything, I've exceeded expectations. And why are you giving me juice? I'm not a kid. I asked for booze. Wood took a sip of the juice and frowned in disappointment. He was nearly 40 years old, after all. Why was Robin giving him sugary juice fit for a child? Don't think I don't know. Robin said. Every time you use that power, it takes a toll on your body. The fact that you didn't pass out this time is already an improvement. So no alcohol for you. Only juice. If you don't like this flavor, there are others. Wood briefly considered resisting Robin's authority, but after the intense battle and his use of the Heart of the Gods, his body ached all over. In his current state, he probably couldn't beat her in an argument, let alone a fight. If the Big Mom pirates or the Beast's pirates win, we'll probably be their next target. Robin continued. The newspaper calls you the Navy traitor Wood, the man the world underestimated. Morgans wrote that you're a powerhouse rivaling the four emperors. The article in the newspaper had lavished praise on Wood's strength, with Morgans acknowledging Wood's power as comparable to that of the four emperors. Normally, Robin wasn't a fan of Morgan's flowery writing style, but she had to admit that the piece about Wood was quite well written. She had even decided to cut out the article and save it as a keepsake. Not that this was unusual. Anyone who knew Robin's little secret was aware that she had a habit of clipping out and saving any article about Wood, regardless of whether it painted him in a positive light. Of course, if the article made Wood out to be too monstrous or villainous, Robin would tweak it a bit with her own writing skills before keeping it. This time, though, she was fully satisfied with Morgan's piece. A little touch-up here and there, and it would be perfect for her collection. But I didn't expect that Firefist Ace, who we met in Alabasta, would get captured by the Navy. Quite the twist of fate, huh? Robin remarked offhandedly. Her casual comment caused Wood, who had been about to close his eyes for a nap, to sit up in surprise. Where did you hear that? We've been together this whole time. Robin was puzzled by Wood's reaction. As far as she knew, Wood didn't have much of a relationship with the Whitebeard pirates, and his encounter with their 2nd Division commander, Firefist Ace, had been brief and insignificant. Do I need intel for that? It was in the newspaper you were just reading. Whitebeard's commander, Fire Fist Ace, was captured. Some guy named Blackbeard took Crocodile's place and became one of the new warlords of the sea. Wood had been so focused on the aftermath of the Four Emperors battle that he hadn't paid attention to the rest of the paper. Normally, news about someone like Fire Fist Ace getting captured would make the headlines. But this time, with the Four Emperors clash taking center stage, Ace's story had been pushed to the side. "Where's that newspaper? Let me see it again." Wood sat up straight and reached out to Robin. "I threw it away. If you want, I can go buy you a new one." "Don't give me that. I saw you tuck it away earlier. Stop wasting time and let me see that news." Wood had thought that Ace's involvement in the Alabasta incident might have altered his fate, preventing him from going after Blackbeard. But history, it seemed, had a way of repeating itself. Ace had still ended up in Blackbeard's hands. Chapter 334, returning to the multiverse life simulation. Wood held the newspaper in his hand, the corner missing from where it had been torn. He carefully read the news about Fire Fist Ace and learned that this time it wasn't Ace chasing Blackbeard, but Blackbeard who had set a trap, waiting for Ace to take the bait. Although the beginning was slightly different, the result was the same. Ace had been knocked down by the Blackbeard pirates' plot and handed over to the Navy. Through negotiations, Blackbeard had become the new member of the Seven Warlords of the Seas, Seven Warlords of the Sea. Now that Ace had been captured, it meant that one of the most climactic events in the series, the War of the Best, was about to unfold. To be honest, whether Ace lived or died didn't matter much to Wood. He wasn't just a fan watching a series. He was a real person living in this world now. As someone who actually lived here, Wood's impression of Ace was pretty average. There's no denying that Ace was loyal and cared deeply about his comrades. But it was precisely because of his impulsive actions that many lives were needlessly wasted. In the War of the Best, both the Navy and the Whitebeard pirates suffered heavy casualties. So many people died trying to save Ace, including major figures like Horse and other Whitebeard pirates' elite members. And even though they managed to rescue Ace, in the end, he still didn't make it out of Manafort alive. This directly led to the downfall of the Whitebeard pirates and their loss of Four Emperors status. Ace's failure to escape Manafort wasn't because his comrades weren't strong enough. It was because of his own recklessness. He had the chance to flee but chose to turn back and die. Sure, Okanu's insult to Whitebeard was unforgivable for Ace. But what about all those who died trying to save him? Was Whitebeard's name the only thing Ace cared about? Were the lives of everyone else meaningless to him? After all the sacrifices made to save him, shouldn't he have honored their memory by surviving, growing stronger, and seeking revenge later? Throwing away all those sacrifices just to get himself killed made no sense. This wasn't a noble act of willpower, it was sheer stupidity. After escaping, his life was no longer just his own. Because of Ace's reckless decision, the Whitebeard pirates were utterly defeated. Whitebeard himself died, most of the elite crew members died, and those who could carry on Whitebeard's will also perished. Of course, everyone has their own perspective, but as far as Wood was concerned, Ace's death was not worthy of sympathy. What concerned him now was the impending chaos. The Big Mom pirates and the Beasts pirates were at war, and with the War of the Best about to erupt, what kind of chaos would engulf the seas? 3 of the 4 emperors were preparing for massive battles. Given the Navy's current strength, they wouldn't be able to control this situation. Once these 2 wars break out, every pirate and criminal across the sea would likely rise up and take advantage of the turmoil. And, sure enough, not long after Wood read the news, Fleet Admiral Sengoku of the Navy headquarters contacted him. Sengoku had to admit that Wood had done an exceptional job in provoking a fight between Big Mom and Kaido. In fact, despite Wood's laid-back attitude, every mission he undertook always yielded remarkable results. Because of this, Sengoku had started to rely more on Wood, calling on him for every difficult mission. This was why Wood often complained that Sengoku never gave him any easy tasks. In fairness, having the Big Mom pirates and the Beasts pirates clash was highly advantageous for the Navy, as they could profit from the situation. This had been the Navy and world government's intention from the start. However, after Ace's capture, things took an unexpected turn. Initially, the Navy had planned to use Ace as a bargaining chip to negotiate with the Whitebeard pirates. After all, killing a mere division captain wouldn't be enough to deal a fatal blow to Whitebeard's crew. But after investigating Ace's background, they were stunned to discover that Fire Fist Ace was actually the son of the Pirate King, Gul D. Roger. Ace's status, previously just the 2nd Division commander of the Whitebeard pirates, instantly skyrocketed. However, with this revelation, the Navy could no longer handle Ace's situation as they had before. The bloodline of the Pirate King was something neither the Navy headquarters nor the world government could allow to exist. Ace had to die. And by executing Ace, they could also demonstrate the Navy's power to the entire world, which would serve as a strong message. But Sengoku knew Whitebeard well enough to understand that if the Navy intended to execute Fire Fist Ace, the Whitebeard pirates wouldn't sit idly by. With the Big Mom pirates and the Beasts pirates already embroiled in their conflict, the Navy couldn't afford to focus on that front anymore. They were already making all necessary preparations for Whitebeard's inevitable assault. And that's why Sengoku had called Wood, asking if he was interested in participating in the upcoming War of the Best. Robin, our vacation ends here. We need to head back to Dark Abyss Island immediately. Have the factory push its production harder during this time. We need to stockpile more weapons. The seas are about to descend into chaos. Once they returned to Dark Abyss Island, Wood left Robin and Russ to manage things while he entered seclusion for training once again. To deal with the turmoil that was about to sweep across the seas, Wood knew that only greater strength would ensure his survival in the face of all the coming changes. This time, Wood had earned 2 opportunities for the multiverse life simulation. So he decided to use them to further improve his abilities. His goal was that, upon waking from his seclusion, he would at least have the strength to truly challenge the 4 emperors. Not just temporarily hold his ground. Robin and Russ were not surprised by Wood's decision to go into seclusion. Everyone has their secrets, and without a doubt, this was Wood's greatest secret. Would you like to use one of the multiverse simulation opportunities? Yes. Ding. The multiverse life simulation is about to begin. This dimension will soon enter a state of slowed time. The host will cross over to another dimension in 5 seconds. Please prepare yourself. The simulation world selected. 0- starting life in another world, entering the crossover countdown. 5, 4, 3, 1. Multiverse life simulation begins. As the system's countdown echoed in his ears, Wood blinked, and the next time he opened his eyes, he found himself standing in the center of a city. No matter how many times I experience this, the realism of it always catches me off guard. Clenching his fist, Wood took a moment to check his body. Relieved that he hadn't turned into a baby again this time, he quickly began to observe this new world. The city featured medieval European architecture, and based on the clothes and attire of the people passing by, it was easy to deduce that he had arrived in a world of swords and magic. There was no need to ask how Wood came to this conclusion. Among the merchants and pedestrians, he saw several people with animal ears. Clearly, this wasn't a world populated solely by humans. Moreover, the magic energy in the environment was exceptionally vibrant, indicating that this was a world rich in elemental forces. Being new to this place, Wood decided to gather information before forming a plan. He approached a nearby merchant, intending to strike up a conversation. However, just as he was about to speak, a small figure rushed past him, nearly colliding with him, before leaping over his shoulder. As the figure jumped, Wood felt the wind elements around her come to life. It was evident that the girl had used the magic of this world. Sorry, mister, but I'm in a bit of a hurry. Someone really bad is chasing me. The person who had collided with him was a girl, no older than 15, with straw-colored blonde hair and bright red eyes. Despite her shabby cloak, she was strikingly beautiful. And from her hurried demeanor, it was clear that she was indeed being pursued. What remarkable agility. It seems this world is even more interesting than I thought. That girl, despite her young age, would easily be considered an advanced magic user in the world of Mushoku Tensei. Though Wood hadn't yet seen the girl's full capabilities, he could tell from her speed that she was far from ordinary. Even Paul from Mushoku Tensei might not be her match. If someone with such skill is still being chased, it means her pursuer must also be no ordinary person. Not long after the blonde girl passed by, another figure appeared. A beautiful girl with silver hair, also wearing a white cloak. Clearly, she was the one pursuing the blonde girl. At first, the silver-haired girl didn't pay any attention to Wood, focusing solely on catching up with her target. However, just as she passed by, a gray cat materialized from behind her, speaking in a clear voice, "Amelia, this man's mana is far stronger than expected. He's no ordinary passerby. And there's also the scent of a blessing around here. It's possible he's in league with the girl we're chasing." Hearing the cat's warning, Amelia stopped in her tracks and quickly jumped back to put distance between herself and Wood. Her eyes, once curious, were now filled with suspicion. "Ladies, I think you've misunderstood something. The person you're after ran off in that direction. As for me, I don't even know that girl. I have no idea who she is or what's going on. Do you believe me when I say that?" Though Wood wasn't sure what the blonde girl had done to upset Amelia, he was certain that they now considered him an accomplice. Wood knew that in these situations, things were typical for things to escalate into a fight. But to his surprise, instead of attacking, Amelia simply regarded him thoughtfully. Then, after a moment, she turned to the cat. "Puck, I don't think he's lying. He doesn't seem like a bad person." Wood was stunned. While it was true that he wasn't in league with the blonde girl, He hadn't expected Amelia to believe him so easily. "Well, if Amelia says so, then that must be true," said the talking cat, Puck. "Still, mister, your mana is quite remarkable. You're unlike anyone else I've ever met here. Even Roswell can't compare to you. It's strange to see someone with such powerful mana wandering through a small town like this." Since this was a world of swords and magic, Wood wasn't particularly surprised by the talking cat. Moreover, he could sense that both Amelia and Puck were far from ordinary. "Don't be so modest," Wood replied. "If my mana is powerful, then what about a young lady beside you? Unless I'm mistaken, her mana is at least twice as strong as mine." Even though it seems to be sealed, saying "I'm the strongest" here feels a bit ironic. Though Amelia may have seemed harmless, Wood could clearly sense the enormous magical power she and Puck possessed. As for Puck, while it seemed small and cute, its hidden mana was no less than Wood's. And Amelia, on the other hand, possessed the most magical power Wood had ever seen. Though most of her magic seemed sealed away, the fact that it could be unlocked meant she was a force to be reckoned with. "Amelia, Puck, why did you stop chasing her?" At that moment, a young man with black hair, wearing a tracksuit and holding a convenience store bag, ran up to them, panting for breath. As soon as Wood saw this newcomer, his attention shifted from Amelia to the black-haired youth. Likewise, the black-haired youth sized up Wood, his gaze filled with a strange intensity, and perhaps, even a hint of hostility. Wood's interest in the young man stemmed from his unusual attire. The tracksuit and convenience store bag. Items that didn't belong in this world. It seemed likely that this youth, like Wood, was not a native of this world but rather another chosen one who had crossed over into this dimension. Chapter 335, Did the handsome male second lead just appear? In a typical world of swords and magic, any transmigrator from another realm would almost certainly be the protagonist. Just like the familiar of Zero's Saito or Mushoku Tensei's Rudius. Clearly, Wood believed that the black-haired boy before him must be this world's favored protagonist, which was why he was taking such a serious look at him. The boy, named Natsuki Subaru, was indeed just as Wood suspected. A youth from another world. Back in his original world, Subaru had simply been running errands at a convenience store. But the moment he stepped out of the door, he inexplicably found himself in a completely different world. Upon realizing he had crossed into another world, Subaru didn't panic or scream like an average person might. Instead, after calming down, he was filled with overwhelming excitement. As an otaku, Subaru had played countless RPGs and read countless novels and manga. For him, transmigration wasn't necessarily a bad thing. After all, in most novels and games, anyone who transmigrates becomes the protagonist, a chosen one favored by the gods. It's practically a given that they would become a hero and be surrounded by beautiful women. Basic protagonist perks. Besides, he wasn't anything special in his old world. Now that he had a fresh start in this new world, with all his gaming experience and modern knowledge, how could he not make a name for himself? Unlike most transmigrators, Subaru considered himself to be pretty level-headed. From the moment he arrived in this new world, he had already assumed the role of the protagonist, treating everything here like a game. And as if to validate his thoughts, not long after his arrival, he had a chance encounter with a beautiful silver-haired girl, triggering what he believed to be a story event. Subaru, who was very familiar with RPGs, knew that when a beautiful girl and a quest event appear together, it means one thing: assist the girl in completing the quest, and in return, gain affection points and officially kickstart his otherworldly adventure. When Subaru learned that Amelia had something stolen by a thief, he confidently promised to help her recover it. However, once they began their pursuit, Subaru realized that this quest event wasn't as simple as he had imagined. Although Amelia appeared to be a slender and delicate girl, she ran as fast as the wind, and her stamina seemed to be astonishingly good. As for Subaru, his supposedly impressive 60-kilogram arm strength seemed completely useless in this world. What made things worse was that Subaru seemed to have triggered a common storyline branch often seen in games: the arrival of a handsome blonde male rival. In many games and novels, isn't it common for there to be a handsome but usually useless second male lead? These characters typically show up to compete with the protagonist for the female lead's affection, but in the end, they are only stepping stones to make the protagonist look better and increase his standing with the female character. At this moment, Subaru clearly saw Wood as that kind of useless second male lead character. His slight hostility toward Wood wasn't just because he feared Wood would compete with him for Amelia's attention, but also because Wood was just too damn handsome. Sure, being attractive can win you favor, but that only works with the opposite gender. Take Subaru, for example. He absolutely couldn't stand good-looking guys, especially ones who might end up as his romantic rival. There's no helping it. With her special blessing, we've likely already lost track of her. We'll need to find another way to locate her. The girl they had been chasing felt the one with the messy, straw-colored blonde hair. Had a blessing of wind. The distance between Amelia and her had been widening, and after being delayed by Wood, they had completely lost her trail. "Don't worry, Amelia. I'll find a way to help you recover what was stolen," Subaru declared confidently. Even though Subaru hadn't discovered any cheat abilities yet, and the people of this world seemed far more powerful than anyone from his world, Subaru remained as confident as ever. Why, you ask? Because he knew he was the protagonist. And as long as you're the protagonist, there will always be a way. If strength won't work, then brains will. Based on his years of RPG gaming, the current situation meant they should seek out NPCs to help them. "Excuse me, sir. May I ask you a few questions?" Subaru, feeling like he had found the key to breaking through this situation, turned to a nearby fruit vendor and asked. Having worked the streets for years, and having seen the blonde girl pass by just now, Subaru assumed the vendor probably recognized her. "Young man with strange clothes, are you here to buy some fruit? I can guarantee that our fruits are the best deal on this street." The vendor smiled warmly as he greeted Subaru. "No, I'm not here to buy fruit. I just want to ask if you've seen the girl who bumped into this guy earlier. Do you know who she is?" Subaru asked, pointing to Wood. However, upon realizing Subaru was just there to ask questions and not to buy anything, the vendor's warm smile instantly turned into a scowl. "If you're not buying, then move along. Don't block my business." Subaru awkwardly scratched his head, realizing that in this world, just like in his old world, money made everything work. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled bill. "Seems like, no matter which world you're in, people are pretty realistic," he thought as he handed over what amounted to his living expenses for the next week. Subaru had hoped to exchange his money for some valuable information, but to his shock, the vendor looked at the Japanese yen in disdain and threw it back at him, saying, "Who are you trying to fool with this scrap of paper? If you're not buying, then get out of the way. You're scaring off my customers." Realizing that his money was useless in this new world, Subaru finally grasped that his old world currency had no value here. "Amelia, do you have any money on you?" Subaru turned to ask the silver-haired girl behind him. "I didn't bring any with me. I came out with Rem for shopping, and she has all the money." "Damn it, not enough starting funds to offer a reward for information? Is this the kind of situation where I need to complete other side quests to earn money before advancing this main quest?" Subaru's muttering was mostly incomprehensible to Amelia, but she could tell that he was feeling frustrated, so she kindly reassured him. "It's okay, Subaru. I appreciate that you're trying to help. But I really need to find that person as soon as possible." The item stolen from Amelia was a dragon insignia, a symbol of her candidacy as one of the contenders for the Dragon Kingdom's throne. If it was lost, it would be as if she had lost her candidacy altogether. She didn't have time to waste. "Sir, I'll take a pound of apples, and while you're at it, can you tell me if there's a slum or black market around here?" Wood, who had been silently standing behind them, suddenly spoke up. He tossed a silver coin onto the vendor's table as he made his request. The highest denomination of the Dragon Kingdom's currency was the gold dragon coin, followed by silver and copper coins, with an exchange rate of 100 to 1. A pound of apples would only cost a few copper coins, so the silver coin Wood offered was far more than enough. Don't ask Wood why he had money. He had simply reached into his pocket earlier and found that he had these coins. Apparently, the character he was simulating this time was someone quite wealthy, since ordinary people rarely carried gold or silver dragon coins with them. A customer offering a silver coin for a pound of apples was rare indeed. The vendor's face lit up with joy as he quickly packed a pound of apples for Wood and gave him directions to the slums. Before they left, the vendor even reminded them to be careful, as the slums were full of thugs and lowlifes. That vendor really is a snob. But if you had money, why didn't you just ask him if he knew anything about that girl? Subaru grumbled. Subaru felt dejected. He had missed an opportunity to show off in front of Amelia, and he couldn't understand why Wood would ask about slums instead of the girl. It's quite simple. Even if the vendor did know the girl, there's no guarantee he would tell us much. When I ran into her earlier, I noticed that her clothes were even more ragged than those of the common townspeople. If the item she stole doesn't have any value to her, then she might have been hired by someone else, or she plans to sell it. Amelia nodded at Wood's reasoning. The item she stole is important to me, but it probably doesn't hold much value for anyone else. Even if it's not valuable to others, when a thief steals something they can't use, their first instinct is to sell it for money. Since stolen goods can't be sold openly, they usually end up on the black market, which is often located in rougher, more dangerous parts of town. As someone with deep connections in the underworld, Wood was well versed in how these things worked. "Ah, I see. That's why you asked the vendor about the slums and black markets." to get there first and wait for the thief to show up. Not bad, young man. Puck clapped his little paws, impressed with Wood's deduction. Thank you so much for your help. If we recover my stolen item, I'll definitely find a way to repay you. Amelia added gratefully. Without Wood's assistance, Amelia could have found the slums by following the spirits, but it would have taken a lot longer. Don't worry about repaying me. It's my fault you lost track of her in the first place. Good luck finding your item. I'll be taking my leave now. After helping them figure out the general direction of the thief, Wood decided not to stick around with Amelia and Subaru and chose to go his own way instead. Although it was obvious to anyone with common sense that Subaru was the world's protagonist, and Amelia and her group were the main cast driving the story forward, that had nothing to do with Wood. Wood wasn't your average transmigrator. He didn't need to complete random quests. He just needed to live his life and experience the world. The world was vast, and one didn't need to cling to the protagonist to gain benefits. Sure, staying with the protagonist might increase the chances of encountering rare opportunities, but the risks would also increase accordingly. When Wood had been in the world of Mushoku Tensei, he had no choice but to stick with the protagonist, Rudius, because Rudius was his elder brother. But Subaru. He had no connection to this world's Wood, so there was no reason for Wood to help him. Amelia and Puck didn't find it strange that Wood left. After all, they were strangers to each other. Wood had already helped them plenty, and it made no sense for him to continue assisting them. Subaru, on the other hand, was taken aback. He had spent all this time thinking of Wood as a rival second male lead, only for the man to just walk away so easily. To be honest, Subaru had been feeling the pressure just now. Wood wasn't the typical dumb, handsome second male lead Subaru had expected. Not only was he good-looking, but he also had brains. Compared to Wood, Subaru felt he didn't have much of an advantage. Fortunately, this tall, rich, and handsome guy had now removed himself from the equation. Even though Wood had taken the chance to impress Amelia, Subaru still believed he had plenty of opportunities to shine later. As he left Subaru and Amelia behind, Wood strolled down the street, munching on the apples he had just bought, thinking about his next steps. From what he had gathered from Puck and Amelia, this world was rich in magic and had a special power called blessings. If Wood wanted to make this simulated life worthwhile, he needed to learn new abilities from this world. After a bit of thought, Wood also began to understand the unique aspects of his new body and what these blessings were. Blessings, in short, were divine gifts. Special powers granted by the world itself. Those who possessed blessings could have their abilities multiplied many times over, making them individuals favored by the world. Chapter 336, Am I Stuck in the Same Day? The blessing isn't something everyone can possess, nor is it limited to just one per person. In fact, it's even possible for some extraordinary individuals to acquire them later in life. Of course, some people might get a blessing, but the powers they receive could be completely useless, essentially dead weight. After some exploration, Wood discovered that the body he was in possessed not just one but two blessings, making him a rare dual-blessed individual. The first of Wood's blessings was the Knight's Glory, which boosts willpower, recovery, and resistance after becoming an officially recognized knight. It was a decent blessing, though rather restrictive. After all, it wasn't clear whether Wood had to be officially recognized as a knight or if he could just consider himself one. However, Wood was far more pleased with his second blessing, the Moonlight Blessing. As the name suggests, this blessing is related to the moon and its effects are simple yet powerful. Wherever moonlight touches, all of Wood's attributes would be enhanced to a certain degree, and he would gain immunity to some abnormal status effects. Additionally, even if he didn't sleep during the night, he wouldn't feel tired. Of course, once daylight arrived, all accumulated fatigue would hit him at once. From what Wood could gather, this moonlight blessing was among the most powerful types of blessings he had encountered. If he could become stronger under the moonlight, then night truly belonged to him. Regardless of what other gains this world may offer, just having the moonlight blessing has already made this simulation worth the price. Now, the only questions remaining were how much stronger this blessing would make him and how to fully utilize his Knight's Glory blessing. As with his previous life simulations, the body he had now couldn't compare to the one he had painstakingly forged in the world of pirates. However, it was noticeably stronger than the one he had in the familiar F-Zero world, even matching the strength of his Mushoku Tensei self. It seems this body must have undergone regular training. If I practice a little, it should easily reach the level required to master the 6 powers. Since this was a Western medieval setting, there was bound to be a kingdom and, naturally, a Knight's Order. Why not join a Knight's Order and make good use of my first blessing? It could elevate my status, and I might learn more about this world's powers along the way. Having no better idea for the moment, Wood ultimately decided to head for the capital and participate in the Knight's Order exam. Becoming a knight would not only allow him to tap into his first blessing but also give him the chance to encounter stronger individuals in the capital than in this remote town. Wood was currently in the Lunica Kingdom, on the territory of Count Roswale El Mathers. It would take at least several days of travel to reach the capital from the borderlands. So, Wood rented a dragon mount for 2 silver coins to serve as his transportation, following the map's directions toward the capital. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. Along the way, Wood encountered some magical beasts, which he easily dispatched. However, just after slaying a wolf-like monster and double-checking his map, Wood suddenly felt a strong wave of dizziness hit him. This was an experience Wood had rarely encountered before. At first, he thought it might be some form of mental attack from an unknown and powerful entity, so he quickly tried to gather his focus. Yet, the overwhelming dizziness soon took his consciousness away. When he opened his eyes again, he was shocked. Instead of being in the wilderness as he should have been, he found himself back on the same bustling street from earlier. At first, Wood thought his system had malfunctioned, causing him to cross worlds again. But when he noticed the half-eaten apple in his hand and the familiar street vendors around him, Wood realized that time had somehow been rewound by over an hour. Initially, Wood couldn't believe something so absurd could happen. Since he didn't know much about this world, he assumed it was some kind of special mechanism. However, when he returned to the dragon rental stall and was greeted by the enthusiastic shopkeeper, Wood was stunned. Not only had time rewound, but the memories of the people in this world had also been reset. Even though it had only been a short while since Wood had rendered a dragon, and the shopkeeper shouldn't have forgotten him, the man now acted as though he was meeting Wood for the first time. His introduction of the dragons was word for word the same as before. Feeling completely baffled, Wood had no choice but to rend another dragon. To avoid repeating the same actions,